over that tree.
It was a big tree.
I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And they're busy.
Yeah.
Already?
Yes. But
You never know.
you never know. I mean,
Alan. Gotta turn this down. Number 7. All right. You gotta turn number 7 down. Go ahead.
Number 7 might switch to Jennifer Freeman.
What was your old speed? Y'all good?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, awesome. I'd like to call the Board of Supervisors meeting to order. As always, let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. We do have a quorum. We do need to adopt an agenda. Anybody have anything we need to add to the agenda this afternoon?
I have no additions, Mr. Chairman. I just want to point out, though, for clarity, I mentioned this to some of you coming in and just for general public, when you have folks that, like, our treasurer's out sick, so there's been just a slight adjustment. The packet has been updated to put those in order, so when treasurer's not here today, we pulled them off and so forth. But other than that, there are no additions. Just want to make sure you are aware why.
Anybody have anything we need to add?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. As always, public comment.
I'd like to make one.
Yes, sir.
May I add one?
Yeah.
Mr. Smith here can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'd like to see these nonprofits file or show you a 990. That's it.
Thank you, Joe May.
Mr. Chairman, do
Yes,
you wish
sir.
me? I appreciate Mr. May's comment. This year, we did not include those in the packet, but we have received that information. We trimmed that down based on comments from the board last year of just condensing some of that, but we do have those forms.
And I'm sure you'll look at it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Other public comment. Is anybody online? No. Good. All right. Let's get right to it. Let's start. You have your update on goals
So
and
just-
priorities, Jonathan?
Yes, I do. We may have to bring that up. Do you have that one? Yeah, the goals and priorities. 1 second, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
If not, just grab it from your website packet. So as Ms. Warren brings that up, you have it in your OneDrive, but she's going to bring it up so the general public and the press can see it as well. This was okay, great. We went back and made updates based on the comments and feedback from the board last time. So as we go through that, number 1, goal and priority, we added to date. We do know the grant monies and the VADI awards require the broadband project to be done by August of 2025. So we filled that in. Financial software replacement, we added an actual date there of January 2024. So that's found on 2B. We removed 3A and have that now as the original was a program heavy maintenance for county buildings. you all funded a facilities condition assessment report, which we are using now for our capital. So we removed that, but we added in its place the plan for a new EMS facility. We have a draft PER. We're waiting on to give us some estimates to bring to the Board of Supervisors to consider what your renovation plan could look like. 3B is dispose of surplus property or surplus real estate. So we just left that. We pulled out last year. It had Thrift Road in Crickersville. Thrift Road, CSB now owns. So we didn't want to be too specific. It just gives you the ability, if there is any property you have identified, then that's a goal and objective listed. Moving down on number 5, we just updated to clean it up a little bit to, this is ongoing, negotiate an optimal exit of Greene County's exit from RSA and review and discuss future RSA plan and policies. Right now, the way that looks like, we have a memorandum of agreement in place with Orange County. Should and when Greene County exits, the new RSA would be Orange and Madison counties. And I believe that was a 6-year arrangement. We're now down to 5 years remaining on that. So we just cleaned it up a little bit to make it reflective of current times. 6, try to put those in order now. We eliminated provide more benefit contribution for employees, but we have now developed incentive program and public safety scales. The incentive program looks like certifications and so forth. So if folks, it's not just about asking for more money. If there are certifications that are applicable for a certain position or department, certainly we want to be able to give increases, but we want to be that based on, outside of merit, based on certification. So that is providing more services for the county to the citizens. And then B is provide and encourage adequate training and certification. So 1 is if you approve of any incentive programs and certifications, and then the encouragement part would be through the budget mechanism, you fund for the training that's needed that year. And then number 7 was an addition, the comprehensive plan update. That has officially kicked off. And matter of fact, after this meeting tonight, starting at 6:15, is the next meeting for the comprehensive plan committee. So that is definitely a major goal and priority for this year. And those are the updates I had, Mr. Chairman. I want to make sure those are reflective, or if you had any more comments. This actually goes in your budget book, as you recall last year.
Anybody have any comments, thoughts? All right. Good. All right, let's move on to the fun. Department heads and outside agencies. Tracy, come on up.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Hopefully y'all can hear me. I do not really have any changes other than under advertising for 81110 for economic development. We left that 7,500 on over 1,000 because we used that 6,500, which was actually out of Jonathan's budget last year for that livability magazine. So quite frankly, if that weren't approved, that's okay. That's really the only difference. The Central Virginia Small Business Development Center, we just added that as a line item onto my budget versus being separate. And as a reminder, our first year, they wanted $9,000 and I negotiated down to $500. And so we kind of went back up to the general per capita, which they're still asking for more, but I told her we would keep it the same because that was all I could ask for.
Please agree. Questions for Tracy on 81110?
Well, let's see. I've got the PDF says that you're asking for $7,703 more, but the Excel spreadsheet says $11,003.
The sheet I'm working off of is off the packet that's online, and the total of the change between 23 and 24 is 7,703.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Supervisor Yao, is that in the OneDrive or?
No, that was the budget request approval amounts. It was an Excel spreadsheet. Looks like everything was summarized on there. Column H.
I found column I, there was a formula that wasn't capturing all of the rows at the bottom. I just noticed that, but let me just validate that this is
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I don't have that.
5703.
Tracy, you said that extra $6,500 for advertising was what?
For this fiscal year, we used it for Livability magazine.
Uh-huh.
So, which it actually should have been on my budget and it was supposed to be on Jonathan's budget. So we just left it on my budget in case it were needed. It wouldn't be needed for that. That was a one-time thing.
Okay. So that can come off.
Correct. Yeah.
Do you, if I may, do
Full
you have
disclosure.
any other,
Anticipated or known expansion of advertising. So that's what, for the board's information,
Right.
that's what that was for, to give us more exposure. But do you have any other anticipated?
I can always advertise. So anticipated, no.
Okay. Okay.
All right, other questions? Tracy, go to tourism.
Okay. The tourism one looks a little different because we have the ARPA funds in there as well. So it shows up as basically $20,000 more, $20,119 more. But that's because of the ARPA grant. That's a total of $40,000. So minus that, it's the normal $50,000.
So Jennifer, is that the way we're going to handle the ARPA funds, regardless of what department they fall out of? We're going to let them put it in their department.
If it's tourism, historically, the ARPA has gone into the tourism because
Yeah.
we're able to keep it separated out. The other ARPA funds, we do have a separate fund for.
Right.
It was mainly with Tracy's, with the tourism, because Fund 11 is separated out. We were able to, and we aren't commingling expenditures in that line item with others. We were able to do it this way. But other in Fund 10, we would not put any ARPA funds up in Fund 10. They would have to fall under a separate fund.
Okay, I just want to know,
Yeah.
going forward, what
Yes.
to expect. And we've got to do a report on all ARPA funds expended. That's a periodic report, right?
Correct.
I mean,
Correct.
it's more than just one report.
Yes, we have to do filings
Yeah.
on a regular schedule.
It's one report, Supervisor Yao, for the 2.5 million, which has mainly been designated for broadband.
Mhm.
That report is done in finance. Tracy has her separate reporting that is required for the ARPA tourism dollars, but there is reporting for both. Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, other questions for Tracy? All right, thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
So just to confirm on Tracy's Department of Economic Development 81110, the change was really only 5,703. I just wanted to let everybody know that it's not 7,000.
All right, Valerie, who are we starting with? Let's start with Valerie.
Good afternoon. At the request of my DSS board, they wanted me to start talking a little bit more about impact of how many citizens of Madison County are served and kind of what the work DSS does looks like. So please know I'm not going to go crazy with that, but I just think it's worth talking about that more than 3,500 Madison County residents received benefits from DSS last year. And that looks like recipients of Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, food stamps, temporary assistance to needy families, or medical assistance. So again, when you look at 13,000 residents and 3,500 receiving benefits from us, that's a big number. Not only do we kind of serve the citizens in that way, but we had an average of about 28 kids in foster care, 44 kids getting adoption assistance, 243 kids involved in Child Protective Services referrals, and about 25 adults in Adult Protective Services reports. For that, there are 25 employees of Madison DSS who are meeting those needs of the people of this community. As I kind of looked at numbers, I think it is interesting as I looked at a beautiful pie chart where we talk about the total amount of social services spending by funding source in a locality. 4% of my budget is locally funded. So I just am excited to report that with the local dollars that you contribute, we're bringing down 96% of state and federal dollars. So with that as my intro, the total local share of my budget request is $712,419, which draws down federal dollars, totaling my budget to be $3,356,230. Gosh, I'm having trouble speaking. $3,356,238. This does include an increase in local funds of $48,295. And where that comes is in our administrative costs relative to our compensation plan that requires certain probationary end of trainee salary bumps for my employees. I have experienced kind of a pretty high vacancy rate in years past and am thankfully fully staffed. But with that becomes those end of probation, end of trainee salary bumps. We do now have more participants in our healthcare plan. One of the most hotly talked about issues within the DSS board has been a significant increase in our costs for legal services related to cases within the Juvenile and Domestic Relations Court. Our attorneys' rates have significantly increased. The other issue that I think has been talked about by the board to this point has been kind of looking at our new HVAC system and what depreciation kind of costs are going to look like in our budget, which allows us to draw down some state reimbursement to the money the county is fronting for that system as well. So again, my overall budget is an increase of $48,295 in local funds, and I'll answer any questions you have.
Well, I'm good. So Valerie, those numbers, the 712 request from the county and the 48 increase, they don't show up in any of our documents here. Is that correct?
I apologize for that. The documents I complete for the state process are very different. So again, I'm not aware of what's in your packet versus what I've prepared that's summarized in the counties.
That's what's in our packet
Gotcha.
right there.
Yeah, you can see the notation is the 40 plus $1,000 on the local share increase.
Your total increase is 214,402, with the local side just being 48.
That is
925.
that is correct.
925,
Yeah.
yes.
I'm always looking for the numbers.
No,
Your
it's-
comments.
we just
I
got
got you.
we're going to get in the rhythm. It's okay. Other questions for Valerie on DSS? All right. Thank you, Valerie. Tiffany, come on up. CSI. Howdy.
Good afternoon. So I believe you all would be happy with me this go around. As you know, in years past, our budget had exceeded quite a few million in starting out back in 2016, 2017, with the high rate of foster care numbers and cases that we were serving in our community. Currently, we are serving, as of right now, in our lowest that we have seen in years, which has allowed my budget to decrease slightly. But just as kind of some precautionary things that we are seeing right now, just in our community, is we're seeing quite an increase in domestic violence and the use of meth. we were seeing in 2016, 2017 was the heroin epidemic and the opioids. We are now seeing meth. So unfortunately, our cases, in most of them, we're seeing that. So we are serving quite a few families for addiction, but along with the domestic violence. But currently, my numbers, I'm serving 32 children through the CSA. Of course, it doesn't match the cases that are opening through CPS, but it just means they have not come through me currently. But we are seeing an increase in cost when it comes to these services, that a lot of our providers have increased their costly rate, not by just $5, but they're increasing it from $15 to $20 every year. So, and with the significant need of some of these kids and families, it does cost a little bit, but in keeping control, we have done, I think, a significant job into lowering the cost of our local dollars, but still having that control there. So the work that's being done by the workers through DSS has been tremendous, working on the reunification with families, but also the adoptions that we've been able to be successful, where we've had kids who've been through our agency for years be able to be reunified to a new family and have a place called home. So that's just some of the work that we do. And yes, it costs a little bit of money, but it is something that we really want to work and strive for, is for every child to have a home, safe place, but also a home that they know that they can stay in. So any questions or?
You're just for clarity purposes, and going down through your sheets, it all kind of makes sense. Your total reduction, or your total reduction is 350. 75K of that is Madison County funds that's being reduced. Your total from the county is 675.
Correct.
Yeah.
As of right now, the money that we have spent locally is just a little over $95,000. I don't think my January report has been approved just yet, so I'm not sure the local side of the exact amount that was taken out, but we've only spent a little over $95,000 just locally. So of course there is a state match as well, but we also do pay towards Medicaid funded services. So we may not see that through just my part, but we do have a match rate that the Medicaid side of it. So I do want to make sure that that cushion is there for those Medicaid funded services, because like I said, they may not pass through me directly, but there is a portion that is being matched. So I just want to still have that cushion. We are also seeing the residential issue across the state of Virginia, that there are no beds available for children that they are having to go out of state for. And it may not be a Medicaid funded option. We have kiddos who have had over 100 applications sent through the state of Virginia out of state and was denied. So we want to prevent that if we can, but there is that possibility we may have to go out of state with a kiddo for residential. So I don't want to lower the budget to where it's going to be critical, but still have that cushion just in case. As to we give it back, that's great. If not, it's just unfortunate.
The last several years we've been moving in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
At one point, I mean, I'm sitting here and trying to think, how long have you been in this position?
Almost 8 years.
Yeah, I mean, the first year, I mean, it was out of control. I mean, it's skyrocketing up. We had a contingency item, line item specifically for cost overruns on this, and it was huge. It's a big step in the right direction.
Yeah, I think we were in the 60s of kids in foster care, and as of right now, we're in the 20s. So, but like I said, you just never know what each month is going to bring. We can adopt 3 kids out or reunify so many kids. By next day, we could have maybe 3 kids in foster care. It just all depends, and it's an unfortunate back and forth kind of thing, but it's just the job that it is.
Questions on this? Thank you very much.
Yes. And thank you to Dustin, who sits on my CPMT team. He has been very well to work with, and his insight and also his input for the county. So no, no, but I do appreciate you.
Thank you. Tiffany, that's good stuff.
All right, Simon, come on up.
So, Mr. Chairman, this is my boss at Skyline Cap, so I will not be engaging in any conversation on this one.
Yes, sir.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, doesn't speak well of you, Simon. All right, tell us what you're doing, Simon.
Well, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the board, Mr. Weekly, and staff. I just want to thank you first for the opportunity to be here. This is 32 years in a row that Skyline has been in Madison. We're designated by the governor to be the community action agency for this community and many others. We're here asking for almost $50,000, $1,000 of new funding. And that, as well as DSS was saying, represents less than 5% of the funding that we're bringing in. So the majority of our funding is through grants, and we actually have to show a match to receive the grants. So it's a double sword. You give the money, it helps us get the grant, and then we write for the other 95% of the funding. So with that funding, what are we doing, right? So we've expanded this year quite a bit. We have housing and education are our two main areas that we focus on. We have 3 apartment complexes here in Madison. One is new to us this year. We have Duplex, which is 2 duplex buildings on Duplex Lane, a lot of duplexes there. And then we just purchased Apartments on Main, which is the old barber's house right down here on Main Street. That is now 6 apartments that we put in there. We have the majority of those filled. So in total, there's 10 apartments in Madison that we have. 8 out of 10 are filled. The other 2 were taking applications since they're new, and they should be filled here pretty soon. 4 of those 8 are on vouchers. So those are individuals in particular who are living alone on Social Security with a fixed income that otherwise would be on some other subsidized housing. So that's where they are. With that, though, we also provide emergency home repair for those individuals in Madison County who are in their homes on a fixed income, and they have something that's threatening for them to lose their home. So their roof is leaking, their plumbing is leaking through their home. It's usually a substantial issue that they have. We usually partner with Habitat or some other, even Paul Davis has donated a lot of the time and effort to put these projects together. We offer that in Madison County. We did 3 jobs last year that totaled $7,000 worth of work, which Madison contributed $4,400 towards that. We also have vouchers, which is rental assistance. We have 22 families in Madison that participate in those. Those, again, are usually individuals on Social Security or disabled or very low income, where they would otherwise possibly be out on the streets. Those 22 families received $140,000 worth of rental assistance throughout the year. So have their income reviewed every single year. They have to qualify every year to continue on the program. They also have a 0 tolerance for any type of damage. So if they cause any damage to the apartments or whatever, they lose their voucher for life. They're never allowed to be on the program again. Housing counseling is also provided to all of these participants as well as more. We had 28 families in Madison County last year come in for housing counseling. That we get certified through the state with a program to run with them. That help goes from anything from understanding a lease to how to make payments on your rent. The landlords love that one. To budgeting for them so that they can help plan for what rent is appropriate for them. The second side of the house, if you will, is education. So with education, the board puts, it's around $23,000 towards the Head Start program. The Head Start program has 2 classrooms here in Madison, and we're very, very, very happy with the school system here. They've moved us into the building a couple years ago. We are now in the preschool wing, so everything is our size. Which we greatly appreciate. We have 6 staff there that support 33 students. Those students are at-risk based, so 65% of them must be 100% of poverty or below. For example, a family of 3 has to earn less than $25,000. They earn more than that, they won't qualify. But we can take 25% from 101 to 130, so that would be any family up to 32,000, and we can take 10% over income. Those are almost exclusively reserved for children with disabilities. So as part of the grant, 15% of our children must have a disability. We are typically around the 20% of our children have a disability that we're serving. It's very, very needy families. And I must say, we came in here asking for this funding years ago. I tout the system that happens here in Madison across the entire state. I've been associated with Head Start for 20 years, and we have many other communities looking at what you guys are doing with funding us in this source and these families as a representation across the state. We have had one staff turnover in the 6 years that Madison County has supported funding for these teaching positions. So in today's world and with what we're doing with the at-risk job that is tremendous. So I greatly thank you for that, and so do the countless number of families over those years who have that stability for those teachers. It's greatly important, so I appreciate that funding tremendously. We also have a Healthy Families program. We don't ask for any money to support this program. This is a family support specialist who serve 5 families with in-home intensive care in Madison County. This is for mothers who have infants or even pre-birth. This gives them parenting classes. They go through the health and development as well. They partner very closely with the hospitals and other health providers. We also started this year a brand new program to help Valerie and DSS out. We now provide our services to children who are in CPS. So any child or family that's been referred to Child Protective Services, how do they get better? Well, we now offer our parenting services to them. So we can go to the families and serve those families. It's a special certification that we applied for and received. We also applied for and received a grant through the NCPF and the Charlottesville or Culpeper Wellness Foundations of $10,000, which $2,500 was allotted towards Madison. Those go to about $500 each for these families for safety supplies. So anything from plugs in the wall to fire extinguishers to cribs. And all of that comes with a lot of videos that we've partnered with the fire stations and the police. We have gun locks and such that we can go through and educate as well as give the supplies. So it's not just a handout, but it's also information for those families. We hope to continue that program and write for grants to support it. Skyline put in 50% of its funding on its own towards that program to make that work. We also have a project discovery program, which we don't ask for any money for that either. But this is for at-risk children to help them with their study skills and career development. We partner with the middle school here. We had 19 students in this program last year. We have 15 so far. It says 12 in your packet, but we got 3 more signed up since then. 15 signed up this year. Just yesterday, they took a trip to Germanna over in Fredericksburg, and they also stopped to see where they were the career training centers and actually did simulators for the excavating equipment and drones and what have you. These are students that the schools have identified that do not have this opportunity at home. They're not getting this interaction that benefits oneself from learning what's out there and hopefully broadens their horizons as they move forward through their education. So we provide that for those students and with the school system. You guys have a great school system here. We've enjoyed it for a long time. And then finally, and usually lastly, $5,900 towards operating costs, which isn't exciting at all. But that just goes to all of the overhead for all of these programs, which is immense. As you can see, most of all the dollars that we are taking are going directly to a position that's providing services for you. But there's an immense overhead to all of that when we make the best use of that money that we can. So I'll take any questions you guys may have.
Questions?
Mr. Chairman, I don't have any questions since Mr. Yao has to recuse himself. I will say that, as you know, I'm on the board of Skyline Cap, and I've had an opportunity to look at some of their programs firsthand, and I will tell you that is an impressively run organization. It's efficient, it's effective. The only regret I have is that we don't have more Simon Fiscuses to place in other positions. He does an excellent job. I want to commend you on that.
Well, thank you. I assure you I have 49 other employees standing behind me who do most of the work. But thank you. We appreciate you on the board as well.
I just appreciate the breakdown of the local dollars. I mean, it just shows immediately what we're getting for bang for the buck, and then some of your other programs that go above and beyond even without the local funding. I mean, that's great. Other questions or comments for Simon? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, guys.
Yes, sir. Are you going to do as well as him?
Well, we'll see. Should have put Simon behind me. Remember that next year. Simon behind. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. I'm covering a multitude of topics. Let's start first with the Board of Supervisor budget. That is level funded from last year. Really, any input that you all have, whether that's member salaries or if you think lodging and meals, you may be attending seminars. We've kept it basic as last year, but there is enough funding there. We feel should you want to go off to any NACO or VACO conferences, there's adequate funding there for it. So I'm happy to answer any questions on your budget. If not, I'll move on.
You're good on conferences, though? Good. All right. Everybody good with us flat? There you go. Move on.
Okay. Next up, and I'm pulling out a packet, is legal services. There's a slight increase, a change from last year to this year of $21,497. What that is mainly comprised of, in the, I think we had a change. Did we change that to 16? Okay, let me go by yours. So in the legal services, anticipating some upcoming legal expenses, we've left that at 16,000. Even though year to date we haven't spent a lot, we do anticipate using some legal services this year. The attorney services line item, the reason why that is at 24,000 this year, as many of you know, Mr. Gregg has announced sometime this year he'll be leaving his post. So this allows for some transitioning time from the time the county would hire a new attorney, the overlap of their services. I don't want to get into saying the overlap and/or salary. That's a board negotiated item. So we've left the attorney salary it was slightly up. I think when the budget was ran last year, maybe how it was loaded. This position received the 5%. As others last year, so that is reflected. So you see a little bit of a jump at 2,792. That's actually the same level of funding after last year's COLA. So primarily it's legal services and attorney services for overlapping once the county decides on the successor of Mr. Gregg. Any questions on the legal services budget?
Getting a good deal on this Gregg for a long time. Hopefully we'll find somebody good to replace him. Any questions on this one? Go to the next one.
All right, the next is for county administration. Overall, the slight increase on the budget of 7,687. Actually, and we haven't got to the trimming section. That'll probably be around later in February, early March. But I was able to, I want to point out in the professional services allowance, you see that at 16,000, which is a reduction from last year. Mr. Frazier and myself and Dr. Timmons from the school recently met with the maintenance software folks, and we have our pricing. So I believe we can comfortably take that line item down by at least another 5,000, and that would be in line item 3159. So we'll make that change when all budgets are reissued for the board for final consideration. A little bit up on fuel. And I think the office supplies we went down. So primarily the increases there is for fuel, and I think there was a little bit on VRS as well, in health insurance.
Anybody have any questions? Please.
Okay, moving along. The River Basin, Supervisor Yao is the board representative for that. I forget how many counties make up the River Basin, but Supervisor Yao is your member. For years, this is every county has a contribution. It's been at $1,000. I think they even put it in their funding letter since FY '99. A lot of that, correct me if I'm wrong, Supervisor Yao, is just help for some of their administrative costs and the work they do within the river basin. So $1,000, Supervisor Yao can certainly speak for herself as a past member of that committee. There's a lot of value when it comes to the work they do in protecting the river basin. So no, it's level funding from last year as the recommendation.
I think we should give them $1,000 too.
Yeah.
There you
Yeah,
go.
it's worth it. It's just to get together with, I mean, those meetings usually have 30 people there.
They're comprised of state delegation as
Yeah.
well as local government
State
delegation.
Senators, yeah, Congress, yeah, House. Yeah, it's working.
Good. Anybody got any problems, questions? Did very well. Thank you. All right, let's move on. Go to 81-101. That'll be building zoning. Jamie, come on up and talk to us. Yeah, you gotta go to the mic though.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. For the most part, our budget will remain the same. We do have some requested modifications to our fee schedule. We look at this every year and we try and make it as easy and simple and equitable as possible. So we have a few minor revisions on there, and there's I believe, a sheet attached with your stuff, and it's highlighted in red. Two of the things, I wanted to point out. One was under exemptions where we don't charge. I think we should go ahead and add the fire department because every time something comes up, we end up doing that anyway. But that's up to y'all. I recommend it. And then in the building department, when they start work without permits, it makes a major headache for us. So we have a fee associated with that. We're proposing one for erosion and sediment control because it's the same issue. They start without it, and it's a lot of extra work for us. And try and cut it down so everyone's the same. Building wise, everything else is relatively similar, unless you have any questions. Yeah, there's a few changes in there, plumbing and HVAC. Before we were counting, the way we charged on it made it difficult for the contractors and for us. Counting fixtures and stuff like this. We just don't think it's the best way to do it anymore. Just do it like we do with the electrical or the HVAC, based off square footage. And everything would be based off the square footage to make it simpler.
All right. Questions for Jamie?
Mr. Chairman, Mayor?
Yeah, please.
Did you have anything specific on the budget though? The fees, so thank you for covering it. So the fees, we will look to cover that during the revenue portion because fees, just like your tax rate and the overall budget, any fee structure, whether it's dog tags, building fees, whatever, we have to advertise, especially if there's any increase. So you will be receiving that probably in about 2 weeks.
All right, but you're up, Jamie. You're up on the building official budget. You're up 23,657. You've got the new position down there that adds a substantial portion of that.
Correct.
And then you've got WW Associates. You've got a handful of different items that go to those. All those you have just. If you can read that, you're doing really well.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you got anything on any of the justifications in the comments or to this increase?
I would say a majority of it, like you said, is a new position. And there might be some minor adjustments there. I don't think there's anything significant that I can recall.
Please.
Unless you point it out.
Ms. Warren?
So when we had our meeting, I think the biggest thing was obviously the new position and then also the fuel charge increase with vehicle equipment fuel. And then the other one was the need to continue with services for WW Associates in FY24.
Okay.
And so, some additional training needs was also a request.
Yeah, the WW, we have a new E&S administrator. And he's going through the process. He's passed his first exam, so everyone will be happy.
How many more does he have to go?
2 more.
Yeah, all right.
So 1/3 of the way.
Good.
There could be things that come up that we're not prepared for, and we would need assistance. I mean, it could be some commercial thing. I know we don't get a lot, but if it pops up and we're not ready for it, it's going to slow the process way down for somebody. And we think at least having it there, if we don't need it, we don't need it.
Yep. And having $500 for additional training, that's easy. Well, that's not challenging anyway.
We can bump it a little bit higher.
No, 500 is plenty. Anybody else have any questions on this budget?
So Jamie, are you qualified for under E&S?
No,
as
I
well?
am not.
You're not? Okay. So we don't have anybody else in the office currently that can cover this.
Right now, Joe is
the-
what they call provisionally certified.
Yeah,
He went through
sure.
all the training,
I
so he's good for a
understand
year.
that, yeah.
He's taking his first test. He'll have two more. And we have one, Carl, you all know Carl. He's talking about going through and getting his inspector certification. So we have one more, which would be an asset.
With Joe's two more tests, what's the time frame on those? Roughly.
8 months or so, roughly.
Okay.
But he's certified
Yeah.
provisionally, so we're good with the state. They give him time because they know it can't be done overnight. And we work with Culpeper Soil and Water and local communities if we need assistance, if we have questions. Or it gets really big when we talk to WW if we need to.
No, you can't be using it too much. 2,000 is not big of a sum.
No,
Yeah.
majority of ours is residential, and we don't have a problem with that.
All right, questions for Jamie? Jamie, thank you.
All right.
Yes, sir. All right, Ligon, come on up. Talk to us about planning and zoning, or just zoning.
I think there's really only one real good where we are is that we have $1,000 increase to advertising. Last year was a really busy advertising year. It looks like we're starting this year out with a lot of ads too. So that was the only thing that jumped out as maybe a little bit of an increase. We did a couple slight decreases.
So does the advertising, that includes the signs that we're putting up at the locations?
I mean, we
Where-
paid for those a while
We got
ago.
enough of those?
Yeah, we got enough of those. I
Do
got
we? All right.
Are
temporary
you
political
seeing these signs?
No, I haven't
No, I
seen
haven't
one.
seen any of these signs.
Uh,
We do.
We do.
have
They're in my
yeah.
office right there. They're like like the ones that
Okay.
vote for.
Yeah, man.
But it says public hearing.
Nobody's following them. It's good.
But the ads, like I said, it just depends. You can see we went 3,800 last year. They're probably going to be at $4,000 easily this year. So
Yep.
We have to advertise.
yeah, of course, we're collecting
required.
fees on the
Yeah.
other side. We're
Yeah.
we're getting the zoning fees, SUP fees that
Down
offset some of it.
You're down $3,747. That's great. That's what we're looking for. Questions on this one? Comments? Thank you, Lincoln.
Yes, sir.
Except, Brian Gordon, come on up. Tell us about emergency communications.
All right, good afternoon. I've got a few things in mind. I got a net increase right at 11K, I believe. I did decrease some items. The biggest markups in mine, beyond last year, we had a couple things we upticked in training last year, both the motivations and critical for pre-employment testing to kind of cut down on losing folks in the training process. The other part we're looking at this year is the PowerPhone site licensing. PowerPhone is our EMD protocol that we use to give CPR medical instructions over the phone prior to EMS's arrival. Right now, we have to recertify every 2 years. That's right at $129 for every 2 years to certify, and it's $400 to certify a new employee. With the site licensing, we could certify and recertify unlimitedly, plus a cache of classes that PowerPhone offers. That is a fairly good increase. I normally budget around $3,000 for that, but it's an unknown. With the 5,500, I believe, I can look at my notes to see exactly what it was. 5,920. So $5,920 would not be an unknown. It's whatever we need. If we have turnover of 100%, all certifications are covered. Also, what I want to do with that, instead of just doing EMD, to do law enforcement dispatch and fire service dispatch. And what that does is structures the call taking process with the resurgence of the Marcus alert with the state. We don't think we have to do with that, the questions and whatnot. We can integrate that into that and make that an easier process and a more streamlined process for our state reporting needs. Going down the list here, the Geocom tracking for the P25 radio system, there is an uptick in that because we're going to be using our Geocom system to track our units versus the street track system we use now. It will not work with the Astro system. We'll have to find an alternative anyway. That's getting the sheriff another license so he can see him in his office, and then also the ARS uptick and fees.
So that's going to be an ongoing
Correct. And that's probably going to happen this year, but it's going to be the latter part of this year. We're going to need to get the system in place before we can get to that. I'm just getting Geocom and Motorola engineers in the room to know exactly where we need to go with it. And those are the big increases that I had. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, it doesn't have an increase in money in it, really. Are you asking for a drone?
No, we took that out.
That's tremendous. There's only so many drones we can have.
Yeah, we took that out.
All right, anybody got questions for Brian on this? Pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, do the Madison Volunteer Fire Company.
Okay.
Good to see you, Troy. Way to do it, delegate.
All right, so our request for the fire department stayed static this year at $95,000. Pull my letter stuff out here. Really nothing to add. I mean, we put a roof on last year. It was right at $185,000. My mind is correct. We're business as usual. Just paid our truck off. The rescue engine is paid off. We're currently looking at some more options moving forward with some other apparatus. But the ask has stayed static this year.
How's your membership?
Fair. We're getting some new members. So I think we've had, 4 new ones? Yeah, 4 new ones come in the last several months, and they're very active. Of course, the career guys are always active, and our base is active.
One of those meetings, that's all. One of the fire meetings. All right. Good. Flat funding, that's it. We get a lot of bang for a buck out of fire company. How many years have you asked me to do that same thing?
Last year we went up, but before that, I think there were 7 years consecutive. We stayed the same.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, man, I work in town. I tell you what, you guys been running some calls here. And
Here lately.
Good golly. It's interrupting me when I'm trying to work.
Me too.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Good job, Troy. Circuit Court, Ms. Lauk.
I don't think there's a whole big much difference in my budget. The 27,000 on that item conservation grant, that's a grant that we got to finish, and the county will be fully reimbursed. So I mean, that's my big. And of course, the technology grant is 18,000, but that will also be reimbursed. We went down a few things. You know, we're trying to stay pretty conservative. That's on the clerk's budget. And out of all the budget, I mean, the best that I could tell, we reimbursed the county about 270-some thousand out of what my budget is, between the comp board reimbursing the salaries and then the grants. And we collect the copy fees. So my lease on my copier is paid for through those. I reimburse the county for that. I don't think there's a whole lot on that one. And then on the circuit court one, unfortunately, again, I come to you letting you know I don't know what the legislature's going to do on the jury money. Haven't heard that yet. They once again, it's proposed at $100, but we don't have a month-long jury trial this this year anyway. So I did come down a little bit on that one. We didn't have that jury, so luckily we did not have to use all that money. And then the 4,000 is for a network storage device that BIS installed They installed it 5 or 6 years ago. They informed me it was probably good for 10 years, but now they're telling me that the company that works on those will no longer work on them any longer. I could take the chance and say, well, we'll take a chance and see if it's any good, but it means it's court. And if it goes out right in the middle of the jury trial, then there we are, but it backs up everything. And so it does cost us a little over $4,000, but I have $2,000 that is in money that we collect that is for recording devices. So my intention is to reimburse the county that money. We actually bought the original one out of the money that we had saved. But it's taken me the 5 or 6 years to get back to $2,000. So we don't collect a whole lot of money, but we do collect a little bit, and it is supposed to be for a recording device in the program.
So, Lita, why wouldn't we have budgeted for the judge's secretary in FY23 in this year? Did we just miss?
Yeah,
we
it was
missed
it was a miss. I was going through and I called Orange County to get a copy of the MOU, received a copy of that. And so we are obligated. We did pay the fee last year in June. So we'll pay it again this year in June, and we'll have to do a supplemental appropriation for that miss. But I wanted to make sure that it is in the budgets, because since we do have an MOU currently for 40%.
And it was, Green was part of this, but they backed out. So now the MOU reflects Orange and Madison. Orange is 60%. We're 40% billed for that position.
So that's office assistant / or the judge's secretary travels with the judge?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Yeah, and we're responsible for our.
Why did Green back out? Why did Green back out? Anybody know? Why did Green back out?
Our judge doesn't go to Green anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
When Judge Fountain was here, he covered all 3 counties, but after he retired, they split it.
Okay.
Yeah. So they pay her insurance and everything. She gets all of her benefits through Orange, so that we don't have to fool with that.
So this change really isn't 22,000. It's really
Yeah.
went down, huh? Yeah.
I just don't think we'll have. I am a little concerned about the jury. If it goes to $100 a person from 30, if we have grand jury and we have that 6 times a year, we have usually 7 people. At $30, you're talking $210. If they change it, it's going to be $700 times 6. But as far as civil juries for very long, right now we just don't have any on the books. I have one on the books for this fiscal year, but I don't have any for next.
All right. So we got a correction, and we're going up on your 21,700. You're going up 21,000, just shy of 22K, primarily composed of health insurance at 12. So as the predominant leader. Any questions, comments, thoughts? What do y'all want to do here? Thank you very much, Ms. Lauer.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, for the board, just on the benefits health insurance, what I did was I had Tilly give a breakdown of exactly by employee how much we're paying for health care. And because you have people coming and going, maybe on the family plan versus single, that's why your health insurance amounts are probably higher in certain departments, because this is an actual flat today's premiums. They could go up. We might want to consider doing a couple % increase because the renewal's coming up in January. I have not factored that into the budgets yet, but that is something I'd like to bring up to the board. We might want to consider some sort of an increase to anticipate. Or February, I think it comes out, or March 1st, I think, premiums.
I'm hoping they'll have it next week. The schools and the county both pool together, so we normally get it in February. We're just told in February. We hope that's tomorrow, but it could be at the end of February. So Salaries and the fringes are reflective of as of last year. In this case, with health insurance, it's current.
Right. And so that's why the FICA changes too because of that. So, although that's didn't change by much, but I noticed change. The salary didn't change, but the FICA changed. Well, as a reflection of health insurance.
It wasn't. I think there was, when the formulas were done last year, I noticed, and I remember hearing that when there was that 5% COLA load from last year, they didn't put an increase to FICA for that 5%. So I was finding that FICA was a little bit under what it should be for that reason. So I've corrected all of that.
Okay.
Questions on any of that? All right, let's go to the next one.
I do not see Ms. Lewis here, Mr. Chairman.
No, and I don't see Clarissa either, or Jennifer Hayes. All right, so we got a pause. Like we have, yeah, we got a pause. On.
Good. All about filling times here like a news anchor. So
we're
let's talk about schedules if you want, Mr. Chairman. Is that appropriate?
Sure.
All right. The budget calendar, as you know, we requested to move financial policies. Originally, those were on, I think, the 2nd. So we've asked to move those from February 2nd to March 2nd. This week through February 23rd, you're going to hear from either departments or outside agencies. On the 23rd, we wrap up probably around 4 o'clock. So there's going to be a couple hours there. I would request maybe filling that time going through the department and outside agencies. Jennifer has set up, I don't know, I don't think it's on the one she has there, but somewhere in your folder or her folder, there's the department request, and then there are columns for county administrator or board of supervisor recommendations. And that will give, thank you, Ms. Warren has it on the screen. That'll give you an opportunity while we're waiting on some other things. These will be in budget requests you've already heard, and we can make some decisions on it. So by March 10th, when we have to advertise, we have already grabbed your recommendations or my suggestions, which ultimately, so that's my thought for the 23rd. On March 2nd, we have scheduled for review of major CIP projects and upcoming capital needs and revenue estimates. So we've went kind of around one of our facilities study. You're going to see the other items within that 5-year. Of course, we're going to focus on FY24 budgeting for those, but you'll see the whole 5-year forecast. So there'll be a refinement based on a lot of conversations you had on what you saw with the facility studies. And then revenues, Jennifer and I met with the commissioner and the treasurer. They don't have those, what I'm going to call rough numbers yet. We're about, I think, 2 weeks away from the timeline they gave us to really see that, as well as Venity is segregating out merchants capital, machinery and tools, because when we did our first run through, you would think that personal property, yes, I know you made an adjustment and the valuations were still high, but you would have thought that you just, you were doing well in personal property, but we didn't collect anything on merchants capital. We know that's not true. So those numbers systematically, whatever, were included. So they are setting up a report. I think they may have that structure fixed now where they can generate a new report and show that. And then we'll come back to revenues. We'll have an internal meeting, and then that'll come to you on March the 2nd. By then, the General Assembly is scheduled to end by February 25th. I will tell you the update I sent to you all this morning from Mr. James. We're tracking big ticket. We're tracking everything, but we're tracking the big ticket items, primarily for schools and constitutional offices. The initial budget drafts factored a 5% increase. COLA, they have now added another 2 on top. We are in the crossover period of the General Assembly. We're not seeing anything yet that would indicate that they're going to go back to the 5. Jennifer and I've already had some discussions. She's ran some internal numbers just to see what those could look like. But that's where the General Assembly currently is at. And that's the big ticket item that will be affecting your budget when we get towards collecting everything. There's going to be a lot of decisions, I imagine, that will have to be made because 7% is a very, very sizable number. Jennifer and I met with the schools earlier this week. The schools have their public hearing on February the 13th. We don't have a lot of detail yet. You know, your normal stuff, I think your 4 categories, transportation, instructions, technology, food services. I think I covered all 4. They are too tracking the salary increases. They will have to factor that in. They've given us what they believe is their need for their summer school programs, but they are certainly have a long ways to go so we can have that information to include with our budget. And that would also be on the CIP items for the school. We've talked a little bit about the county CIP. I know Dr. Timmons, in conjunction with Superintendent Graham, have scheduled a joint CIP meeting. Your 2 members is Chairman Jackson and Vice Chairman Yao. Will meet on February 22nd to review some of their initial CIP requests. Good news is the water and sewer piping issues they were unsure of, at least on the sanitary sewer side. They recently had some TV camera work done. The sewer side looks okay, and if water piping needs replaced as they go, they'll handle it then. So that's good, but there is a lot of they got the same condition assessment as we did, which is what we asked for, so you can get a known kind of an improvement schedule and some known values. But we expect that to be a sizable amount as well. So there's got to be a lot of decision making, trimming, and things of that nature to make this budget work. And then you all can decide, how much fund balance that you may or may not want to use. Back to Supervisor Jewett's comment from last time, whether we can look at cash flow to fund from fund balance or debt service. I still hold to my statement last week that we're too early to tell. Jennifer, you do have, maybe that's a good filler, the fund balance sheet. If you would like, it was asked last week about assigned and unassigned. Jennifer, if you want to explain, I will hand those out.
We're only up 112K so far.
So we're working with Bobby Fry to put together over the next, between now and when we meet with you, I think it's March 2nd's meeting, or maybe February 23rd, we're going to have a little more in-depth spreadsheet on some of these items when it comes to the facility study and the impact to fund balance and potential cash flow. But what I wanted to show today was basically just giving you a snapshot. And I think you saw this report previously from Bobby Fry. I filled in June 30th, 2022 column on here with actual numbers from the audit. And I know this is small, so I apologize, but you'll see in the middle, June 30th, 2022 numbers are the audited financials, and it breaks it down by non-spendable, which is your actual prepaid expenditure amount under general fund. It was like 188,000. So that's the non-spendable category, just consists of any type of inventory or prepaids. And then on the restricted section, you can see that the restricted is $3.4 million total of fund balance. And that consists of the asset forfeitures, the unspent bond proceeds, the toppings fund, animal donations, the opioid settlement funds. All of those are in what's called the restricted fund balance. And then going down and committed, nothing is in the committed. However, assigned and committed are kind of similar in terminology. Assigned is where you have the tourism Actual fund balance of Fund 11 is tourism. And the capital projects that are, as of June 30th of 22, what the balances in capital projects that are unassigned were the EMS building, the EMS renovations. We had funds setting aside and assigned. We had and the capital asset replacement program. Those categories were all in that capital projects assigned a fund balance. And then joints, anything that says stabilization reserve, those are based on a percentage of fund balance that is in our policies. So 2.5% is calculated for joint services stabilization reserve. That's part of our policy. And at the bottom, it gives you a total. Our joint services at the end of June 30th were 6.5 million. So you take 2.5% of that, and that sits in your joint services stabilization reserve amount. So joint services stabilization, debt stabilization, and budget stabilization reserves are all formulas that are a part of the policy. So there's a description in the notes section on those. And then the reassessment, I did want to note the 2025 upcoming reassessment of all the properties that we've been setting aside $100K per year for the 5-year cycle. So as of June 30th of 22, we had assigned $400,000 to the upcoming reassessment in 2025. So total assigned $9 million and unassigned $11.4 million. Total fund balance at the end of June 2022 was $24 million. And again, this is as of June 30th, and we're going to be updating it, or we are in the process of updating it now for anticipated, now that we're halfway through fiscal year 23, putting some dollars and some estimates for you for how we look to end for FY23 and then the future over the next 5 years with the CIP. So that's something that we're working on as well. But I did want to at least give you this breakdown since this was a topic at our last budget meeting.
I would just note when you're at home for some good light reading, if you go to page 29, if you want to write this down, page 29 of your audit that Rob's Farmer Cox put to your hard copy, is a lot of that detail that Ms. Warren just read. So also to be a good reference document when we get to our financial policies that we're covering, the debt stabilization and all that Jennifer just mentioned is in there, as well as your reserve. So when you really get to dig into what's committed and you have about 11.4 million unassigned, as you're trying to spend down, because once you reach past 18% in your fund balance, the idea is you're supposed to spend down, or you use it towards downturn economic years to avoid tax increases and that type of thing. So we can get down back to, I think it's the 14 from the 18%. So it'll be a good segue of information to use this sheet that was just handed out to you, coupled with your audit when we go over those financial policies.
And page 28, the page before, has the definitions and explains, I think it's page 28, explains the policies on what we consider restricted, committed, assigned, and unassigned. It just gives you definitions of our policies.
Are those percentages in the CAFR here, or that we just have to read the policies to get that right? I don't know that he puts the percents in here.
Yeah, we do have, there are.
Are they in there?
Let me double check if they're in here. I have the document in my files, but let me see if they're in here. Should give a actual definition, because it has the definition. Let's see, log section. I can pull the document up too, but I just want to see if it's.
Let me get to my procurement folder here, Mr. Supervisor Yao.
Yeah.
email that out.
And I have it too. You don't have it.
Purchase unit surplus. Let's see. You might be able to get to that quicker if you require it.
Oh, yeah.
Debarment and surplus asset.
Yep. Yeah. It's got to do a calculate, see dollars wise. What if we got to look at for, I mean, no, they give us a percent, but I don't want to go down that low.
I thought it did. What percent go from 18 to 14? I thought that there was somebody that we were going to work with as far as financial policy. They wanted us to go to 18 to 20. Wasn't that? I remember, what was that young fellow's name?
Was it Kyle? From Davenport?
Yeah, Davenport and Associates. I thought they were saying that they wanted us to go to 20%.
I guess I don't.
That's been several years.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know if that's been said since my route here, but I guess if I were to add to that, there were things that were added to your joint services stabilization fund, for example. So you heard Tiffany speak earlier about CSA, the unknown. So CSA, I don't know if we added juvenile detention for this one, but we might because of the sizable true ups the last 2 years. But that may be the reason, Mr. Jackson, that was requested. I do not know. I can certainly call Kyle.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I remember they were talking about it.
But when you look at these sizable true ups, it makes sense why we have some of this debt or reserve policies. Did you find that there?
Stabilization go away. I mean, go to Tiffany's CSA, and we had like $1 million actually in that 1 year. And now, I mean, she's just doing an exceptional job. I'm sure the team is behind it as well. Worked out on the right direction.
You know, I guess we got to give credit to some parents out there too, maybe.
Or his folks that stepped up as the foster parents. That's made the huge impact. We were at 80 plus cases at one time. I think down to 20 or so now.
Foster parents, and they fight to keep them in the house, and that's a big deal.
Before she got on, finding foster parents, there was just still had nobody that was willing to do it.
Oh, it was scary high.
It was.
And wasn't anything we could do about it.
Mm-hmm. It's called.
Yeah. Loading now.
So what I have on the screen has some edits. Bobby and I are actually going through and doing our refinements to present to the board. But I wanted to at least show you, we do have a financial policies document, and this is where the summary of key financial policy ratios are defined in red. Just ignore the red. That's some edits we're doing. But right now, we've got, let's see if I can find. Here we go. Operating contingency. Let me see if I can find.
Yeah, there it is.
Find it.
Number 6 was.
This was 18. In excess of 18 was the original stabilization.
But Jennifer, so y'all are saying though, the 20% would now include all those reserves in a way.
Yeah.
Maybe not on paper, but
Right.
in effect.
So yeah, here's the number 7, may establish, and it's either in minutes or it could be in the budget book, but we do the 2.5% was established for these stabilization funds. Sure.
If you go, and we'll put it in this budget book again this year and last year's budget book. I'm online right now. Under financial policies in that budget book, there's fund balance policy. Reading out of paragraph 4 now. As a permanent reserve rainy day fund, the unassigned general fund balance at the close of each fiscal year shall be equal to no less than 14% of the county's total general fund balance. And then if you go further down, an additional 4% shall be available for cash liquidity purposes, resulting in a total target amount of 18%. The county may elect to maintain unassigned general fund balance in excess of 18% target by considering a variety of factors, including the predictability of revenues, the volatility of expenditures, perceived exposures to one-time outlays, which we've bought buses and things like that before, and the potential drain upon the general fund by other funds. In the event that these funds and the unassigned fund balance are utilized as working capital, such as for unforeseen emergencies, the unassigned fund balance should be brought to the required minimal balance within 2 years from the date of the withdrawal. And it gives you some examples that you can use the unassigned fund balance in excess of 18% to fund accrued liabilities, including but not limited to debt service, pensions, post-employment benefits, approved long-term financial plans. So for increase the pay-as-you-go contributions, one-time expenditures, startup expenditures, when it is not practical to reduce expenditures in the amount sufficient to offset revenue shortfalls, the unassigned general fund balance may be used to supplement those as well. So it's a good tool. You know, if you get in an economic downturn or what have you, you can do some pay as you go. So we're in good position. We just have to be mindful where we're going, and that whole CIP is going to tell that story.
Hey, John, what page was that on last year's budget?
From last year, are you on the budget book, the links?
No,
started.
I'm just looking at the hard copy of the budget book.
It's labeled, I started on page 91, paragraph 4. And the bottom right corner has the page number, sir.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Okay.
And also, I mean, it's just good too to read. These are good policies. There was a lot of time I remember years ago putting in here. Again, going back, there's policy in here about our facilities. I think it's a 2.5% annual target. So I think we should be looking at that when we get into our asset replacements or programming of that CIP, how that 2.5% factor according to our policies, how we use the fund balance. And I believe I saw Miss Lewis. All right, and Miss Hood. So, Mr. Chairman, if you wish to go back to the schedule, juvenile probation.
No, over by the podium.
Sorry, it's our first time. You can tell. Hi guys, how are y'all doing?
Good.
Good. My name is Megan Hood. I'm the supervisor for the Madison DJJ office. I also supervise Green and Culpeper. And this is Darlene Lewis. She's our office services specialist for Madison. All right. And like I said, this is my first time, so you guys are going to have to guide me a little bit as to your expectation. So you'd like for us to explain our budget request? Is that correct? Okay.
Just if there's any changes, mainly from last year, would be great.
Okay, certainly. So one of the main changes that we were looking at was Looking at office supplies. So we get part of our funding from you all. We also get state funding. Of course, with the cost of items going up as far as supplies, folders, all that extra stuff that we would need that the state doesn't provide to us with the cost of inflation, we've requested an increase on that. So we requested to move that from $800 or to $850, which is an additional $150. There's also a unique situation right now in regards to mileage. So previously, we were sitting at 1,500. We're looking to increase that just by 250, so that would be 1,750. Currently, the state has pulled some of our state vehicles due to mileage and, in their opinion, lack of usage based on the year. So we are actually operating on 2 less vehicles than what we had been utilizing. As a result, more than half of what we're expecting to use mileage wise is probably going to have to come from the county budget. We do have an appeal in process right now, hoping that we will get the vehicle or a vehicle back to assist. But these are vehicles that we would use to go out to houses of our youth, our family. We would go to the schools. If we're having any community partner meetings, we would need a vehicle of which to do this. So if a state vehicle is not available or if it's being utilized by another part of our CSU, then we would have to pay personal reimbursement, and we would do that through the county. The state's only allowing but so much for reimbursement for that. So that's something that we're facing with. It's very new. I also know that probably it's being advocated during the lobbying sessions and everything right now at the General Assembly as well, but that's where DJJ is sitting in this predicament. Outside of that, there were no additional changes that we requested. So just those 2 small changes. Are there any questions?
Do you have any questions? Well, I'm looking at this. Says the office service specialist position currently covers 32 hours per week in Madison and 8 hours in Green. Are we that much worse than Green? I mean, we have that many more problems than Green that you have to spend.
You are not.
Okay.
In fact, we don't have a office services specialist assigned to the Green office. So Darlene lends us a hand in Green on the days that we have court, which are Thursdays there in Green. We just recently gained a full-time PO in Green. We have a full-time PO here in Madison, and that has kind of been intermittent, I would say, within the last few years. But we just hired someone and we're looking for that consistency as well, which also will probably increase the mileage of what we've used in the past.
And what office space do y'all use in Madison when you're here?
We're downstairs in the courthouse.
In the courthouse?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I did not know.
Huh? Do we not have a phone?
Clarissa's going to put it in her budget.
Yeah. Go ahead, Clarissa.
All right. Anybody else have any questions, comments, thoughts? All right.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right. Clarissa, come on up. Perfect time. Welcome.
Where would you like to start, Clarissa?
Y'all tell me wherever y'all would like.
Just walk through the changes in your request. Good.
The biggest ones have to do with the reimbursements for our conferences that are paid for by the state. Finance would prefer for us to put the full cost in there rather than what we have been doing in the past, which is putting in a minimal cost, spending it, getting it reimbursed, spending it, getting it reimbursed. So what you have here is the full cost for 3 attorneys to go to one conference, 2 attorneys to go to another, and 1 attorney to go to a third conference every other year. Which is, I don't know that we've normally ever used that much money, but that's why that number is so enormous compared to years past. And then the other part of it is essentially getting, we had discussed somehow we hadn't gotten the funding for, and Jonathan, you'll have to help me, it's either the case management software, I think that annual fee hadn't gotten put into the fiscal year 23 budget. We had talked about it, but it just didn't make it into it. And so this is a year late making it into it.
That's correct, Clarissa. And then on the reimbursements that you receive, they go in through the revenue side, and we can handle that 2 way. We can plus up the budget on the expenditure side so that we don't have to do supplementals to move the money back into the budget, or we can, if we change our policy to allow us internally, which is one of the things that I'm going to suggest when we get to policies down the road, is that any type of a true reimbursement like that doesn't need to go before the board for a supplemental. That's something that if it's a true reimbursement, we can put through as an adjustment. And if we do that, either way, we can reduce these back down as far as the expenditures for conferences. It's a wash either way.
So, and it's presented this way to give you the full opportunity to decide which way you would prefer to this.
But it's truly not an increase to the budget.
All right. Questions, comments? What do you all want to do here? Want Clarissa to go into her narrative in the letter below?
Yeah.
Let's go down and do that, Clarissa, please.
Okay, so as you know, we're down an attorney currently. And so one of the things that the board asked is for us to, I guess, explain why we needed this position. So we have had 2 attorneys in the Madison County Commonwealth Attorney's Office. It was a part-time position starting in 2005, and then it became full-time in 2007. We maintained 2 attorneys through 2020 when the Sheriff's Office adopted body-worn cameras, dash cameras, etc. And as part of the state budget language, localities are required to provide 1 assistant Commonwealth attorney for every 75 deployed body cameras. Because watching video takes a long time. You have to watch it, you have to review it. In some cases, you have to redact it if there's children or sensitive information. So it's a very time-consuming process. It's also a very helpful process. But like everything in life, there are costs and there are benefits. I tend to believe that the benefits of body-worn cameras and dash cameras outweigh any negatives. For example, today we had a DUI in the Middle District Court. The issue was whether or not the officer had enough reasonable articulable suspicion to make the traffic stop. We were able to play the dash cam video that showed what the officer saw and clearly demonstrate that there was. That's very valuable in terms of public safety. I don't know how you can quantify public safety. I think a lot of people who are much smarter than me have been trying for a very long time. So as a result, the push comes to shove in that technically by statute, my office is responsible for prosecuting mostly felonies. Because the county has paid for this second attorney position, we prosecute misdemeanors, which means we prosecute DUIs and trespassings and assault and batteries, petty larcenies, which is now anything less than $1,000. We prosecute all of those things because the county decided that it was important enough to pay for and for us to do. If we go down to 2 attorneys as a permanent move, I don't know what that's going to look like. I do know that our office is, it's a weird way to put it, but we're almost kind of reactive. So we only prosecute what comes to us. So if there are, our state police barracks have been half full, our sheriff's office has been low, and now they're not. We had a morning docket this morning that went until 1:30.
Time to start.
9. It's designed to end before 9. And I'm not saying that to complain. I'm saying that to say our case numbers are going up. The complexity of our cases is increasing. I can remember when I started having people ask me whether or not I would be bored in Madison. And, now we're averaging a homicide a year, which is one of the saddest things that I can think of. Our DUI numbers are now through the roof. And they haven't been over the past 2 years. We need the third attorney to keep prosecuting at the level that we are now. And so that's a discussion for the board to make if they would like for us to continue at the level we are at. Then our salary structure will need to change. And that's because it just costs more to hire people. I don't know that in this area we could hire a new assistant Commonwealth attorney for less than the $71,888. If the comp board, if the General Assembly does approve that money, then that will have to be the cost, because by statute we are not allowed to have an assistant Commonwealth attorney paid less than the comp board. Regarding the deputy Commonwealth attorney's position, I don't believe that it's in the right pay grade based on the comp board. I also, when I talk to other Commonwealth attorneys in similarly situated offices, it is absurdly underpaid. The value that we have gotten for the past 7 years from that position, I mean, he could literally go anywhere else and make $30,000. And then the office manager, administrative assistant, while I am asking for things to be regraded, this was a hill that I chose not to die on in 2022, with getting it regraded based on other positions and what their grades are. It should be the same grade.
But Clarissa, other counties have to abide by the compensation that's approved by that board too, right? I mean, you said they can leave here. I mean, the comp board, right?
Yeah, but localities can and do choose to supplement comp board salaries in Commonwealth attorneys' offices across the state. When you
Sure.
look at one of the not so fun facts that I have recently learned is that the state pays for like 40% of the Commonwealth attorneys and their offices across the state. So it's actually more funded by localities than by the Commonwealth.
In Madison
Yeah.
County, I mean, across the board, funds, we certainly fund out what the comp board is, and then we fund above and beyond that
Yeah.
on pretty much everybody. Taking the dollar value out, because I think we're going to talk about salaries, and advocating for it now is definitely appropriate. But, and we have your narrative. I think the better question in the advocacy is your comment that you need that third attorney.
I need that third attorney if the board would like for my office to continue providing the services that we have been providing for the last 7.5 years.
Is that all that attorney does? Is review those body cam videos? The third attorney?
No, I mean, it's not quite that cut and dry. So they would have, what we have had in the past is that they would handle a lot of the JDR dockets and those serious sexual assault, domestic violence, those sorts of things. So it's not just because the body worn camera footage burden, it's not to a specific type of case. And so you can't have a person watch it, as it is, myself, all of the attorneys and secretaries watch it because there's so much to watch.
Could you hire a non-attorney to basically just take care of that?
No.
No? Has to be an attorney?
I could have someone watch it and flag some things, but then I still have to go back and watch it myself. Because if it's exculpatory or if it needs to be redacted, those are things that I'm required to make the call of, or an attorney is required to make the call of. Regarding the grant that started the second position in 2005, my understanding is that there is money for it in the budget, that there is actually money for it in the governor's budget. We'll know, I guess, in a couple weeks if it's still there or not. The compensation board is meeting at the end of March, and the hope is at that point they will have adopted a new funding mechanism, I guess, or staffing standards for Commonwealth attorneys, and that will go to the General Assembly, and they'll either fund more positions or
How, how would that work? I mean, the General Assembly will be done by then, or they will come
they're not
back.
going to do anything until 2025 anyway.
Are you talking about not until 2025 would they implement new compensation?
This is a short year, so they're not going to do a lot of tinkering with the budget in a short session. They'll do that in a longer session. And first, because it's also the first year of the budget.
And the grant money, I think I recall you said it was somewhere around 48K or something.
It's 45. My understanding is that when that started, that was the comp board minimum salary. And even though the comp board minimum has gone up, the grant amount has not gone up.
All right. Other questions, comments?
I mean, so who decided to start prosecuting misdemeanors and stuff? I mean, the Board of Supervisors came and said, we want to start doing that?
I don't think that it's that formal. I think that the prior Commonwealth attorneys have been a lot like me
Uh-huh.
and think that it is my duty to prosecute jailable offenses, regardless of if they're a felony or a misdemeanor. But the reality is that there are only so many minutes in a day.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, there is more that you can prosecute than that there is time to prosecute well. And I would rather prosecute well than try to get everything done.
Mm-hmm.
But the board has supported my office quite a bit. I mean, Mr. Jackson is 100% correct. This board has supported us. And that's one of the reasons why this has never been an issue before, right? Because why would we make something an issue that didn't even need to be brought up?
I know, but you added the third attorney in 2021, right? So it's only been 2 years that you've had a third attorney. That's what you said
Right,
earlier.
we added the third attorney when we got the
2021.
body worn cameras.
Yeah. Okay. I just, no, I hear you, and I just have, I've got to have a way to convince the other citizens, the folks sitting on the store porch in the Etland store, that this
Well,
county
if they're
of
happy to have people driving 100 miles an hour down 29 with no real consequences, then that is a decision that they can make.
right of 13,500 people that we need 3, people in prosecuting. So hopefully, I can look at this and figure that out. You know what I'm saying? Come on up, get a ice cream and.
The grant is still available for the third person, correct? And your budget request.
So I don't know. I mean, I would assume so. That position is not filled right now. So we're not drawing from that grant right now. I would assume that it would be available come July 1st, but they normally do open it up for applications as soon as they can, as soon as they know for sure that the money is there. So I would assume that would come out in March. But
And we've had that grant for how many years? Several.
Since 2005.
That's right. Okay. And it runs through June 30th.
And it was a 3-year cycle, and then it was a 2-year cycle, and then they were going to cut it off early, and then they gave like 2 6-month extensions, and then there was a year extension, and now we are where we are. But I also think that it's my responsibility to let the board know that if this position goes away permanently, that there will be consequences for us as a community.
Something to think about. The budget request has the third attorney in there currently. We're certainly going to come back around to this. That's not including the actual monetary request on the salaries at this point. I think we're going to do a day on that one too. Not just specifically, but across the county. Anybody else have anything for Clarissa on this?
I got one question.
Please.
Maybe a dumb question, but who prosecutes misdemeanors if you don't?
No one.
Okay. They just simply either.
I mean, well, that's not entirely accurate. Law enforcement can prosecute their own cases.
Okay.
I mean, it was a bigger issue.
I just didn't know the answer. That's all.
Well, right. So it's a bigger issue. I was going to say in larger jurisdictions, but that's not true. I know about the smaller jurisdictions that have either had to stop or back off, and I don't know. I don't want to do that.
No,
I mean, and even if we just had 2 attorneys, I can't stand here and tell you that we're going to stop because I irrationally think that it is very important that people drive safely in this county. Mm-hmm. And so I would like to prosecute those cases, perhaps to my own detriment.
Yeah. It's just knowledge for me.
Right,
That's
no,
all I was
it's-
asking.
There are certain cases where the county attorney can do it, so you would pay them to do it in some areas. There may be other areas where we could see if the Attorney General's office is available to prosecute them. It just depends.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a comment.
Please.
And there's obviously a lot of work that needs to be done on what we're going to do with your office. But I will say that I am a big supporter of the broken windows theory in law enforcement. And that's, I think, supports what the Commonwealth Attorney has stated, that if you don't prosecute the misdemeanors, the felonies grow. There's just more opportunity for environmental lawlessness to perpetuate. And I don't want Madison County to be known as the place where you can park yourself and get away with things that you can't get away with anywhere else. Not promising where we're going on this, but that's I share your philosophy, and law and public safety along with public education are our number 2 priorities. And so anyway, but thank you, and we'll certainly be working with you on this.
Well, I appreciate that, and I would also invite any of you, if you have any additional questions, or you want to talk one-on-one, or you want to come see what it's a day in the life is like, buckle up and put your running shoes on and come on. We're happy to have you.
Thank you, Larissa.
Thank y'all.
All right. Victim witness.
Oh,
Yeah, that's the one. You're adamant
I'm adamant.
about, yes, the Commonwealth
Yes.
Attorney Office.
No,
Talk to us about victim witness.
No, it's been a long. Victim witness. The only thing that we have asked for, which you have told me will go to another day, is an increase in salary to put that in line with both neighboring jurisdictions and jurisdictions of similar size. There should be a second page that has that information. As best I can decipher. One other page. That's, well, yeah, so theoretically you can look at it together, but and essentially the bigger part of that is that a lot of jurisdictions are subsidizing the cost of their victim witness. There are some other things that we can do. We can put some of her like office supply type stuff under my office's budget to keep all of the grant money in one place. You know, we're open to suggestions, but we would like to keep it competitive with our closest neighbors, both in size and
All right, questions on victim witness. All right, yeah, you got one?
No, I don't.
I think we've got to go backwards. I'm talking to Jonathan about our staffing request. Our staffing request and salary stuff, it looks like it's going to be on the 23rd. Currently, bad direction to go. Currently, you're not advertising for the 3rd position, are you?
no, the board directed me not to.
Yes. Y'all want to wait till the 23rd and try to figure out some type of analytics to put this in? Or, I mean, it's kind of a question. I mean, I share Jim's sentiment on this. I'm skeptical on whether or not by the 23rd we're going to be able to put something in place that will change opinions on it. I mean, it's kind of a question on whether or not we want to do the 3rd attorney or not. If y'all want to wait, what would you like to do? I mean, frankly, my opinion is really not going to change on the comment that is law enforcement or public safety and education main goals of or main purpose of local government. What do y'all want to do? Anybody? I mean, I don't see us changing a whole lot on the 23rd. That's where I'm really going here. But
2 weeks from
2
now.
weeks from now, yeah. think that definitely, my question has no correlation at all to the pay structure of those people, of any of those offices right now. I'm just asking about the third person. It's a question. And I don't think any of us are in that forum at all, so it's very, very hard to determine.
Is it a problem to advertise and then decide later we decide
No,
not?
I don't believe
I
so
say
at all.
advertise.
I agree.
But
So the hesitancy of advertising is that right now it's a temporary position. And so it's a temporary position that's at a rate of $10,000 to $15,000 less than our closest neighbors. So I am not confident that that would be money well spent to advertise it. And so if waiting until the 23rd gives the board more clarity about a path forward, it would make more sense to wait until the 23rd.
Okay.
That's fine. That'll bother me a bit. That would, fine. We'll wait till the 23rd.
If I find a magical unicorn candidate that wants to work part-time and wants to end on the 30th, y'all will be the first ones to know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Legal aid works. Ms. Klockner, please come forward. Yes, ma'am, please.
Thank you. I am Ann Klockner. I'm Executive Director at Legal Aid Works, and we serve County of Madison and 4 other counties out of our Culpeper office, and we've been doing that since 1980. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. We're asking you to restore funding of $2,000. One reason I was given several years ago when the Board of Supervisors chose to stop funding us was the possibility that our organization over 20 years ago sued the county on behalf of an indigent client. I was never told what the lawsuit was about, which county agency was sued, for what reason, or even whether the lawsuit was determined by a judge to be founded or unfounded. Our one attorney office in Culpeper serves 5 counties, including your constituents. We are trying to cover 25 county courts with just 1 lawyer, spread thin, and turning away 2 out of every 3 applicants simply because we don't have the resources to accept all the requests for help that we receive. You might not consider us a good investment because we might sue the county. You are, of course, the elected representatives of the citizens of Madison County, and as such, I would think you would welcome the chance to support an organization that supports the legal rights of your constituents who are in poverty. If the county is doing something that's unfair or is taking advantage of the people you represent, then I would be happy to help you and the constituents you serve. If you believe that our assistance is frivolous and without merit or not at all helpful, then by all means deny our request. But if you feel that it's valuable for a battered spouse to be represented when she faces her abuser to get a civil protective order, and if you feel that it's valuable for your constituent in need to be represented when their landlord is illegally evicting them or their mortgage company is illegally foreclosing on their home, and if you feel that it's valuable for your constituents to be represented when they're illegally denied their unemployment benefits, then I would like you to consider expressing your understanding of the value of those services by reinstating the funding you used to provide so that we could assist the people that you represent. We're the only agency providing this service. In your county, there are 2,072 eligible low-income persons who could qualify for our services. We help your local government by taking the strain off your social services safety net, by lifting clients out of poverty with enforceable court orders of child and spousal support,
as well as unemployment benefits that the clients would not otherwise have won without our legal intervention. We help the county court system run efficiently by helping those who can't afford an attorney, because those who represent themselves slow the system down considerably. We also provide representation for domestic violence victims. When they have a civil protective order in place due to our representation, they're able to keep safe, and the law enforcement agencies in this county get the assistance they need because they have something to enforce. We leverage your financial support to provide legal services that benefit your citizens. I have prepared a one-page fact sheet that I will hand out to you that shows you that over the 8 past fiscal years, 204 of your county residents were assisted by our staff. We also were able to obtain well over $40,000 in real help, financial help in terms of child and spousal support, liabilities avoided, things like that. In the last fiscal year, the 3 offices of our agency obtained over $1 million for our clients through the 17 counties that we serve. If Legal Aid Works had ever sued the County of Madison, and that was easily decades ago if it ever did happen, it was likely to have been a lawsuit regarding the county's Department of Social Services not having calculated public benefits like welfare or food stamps correctly for our client. It would be great if we lived in a perfect county that never made any legal errors. However, if there were an error made by Madison County DSS, I hope you would not question the right of people wronged by that error to seek redress in the legal system, a system designed for just that purpose. If you have no problem with people bringing legitimate disputes of law or fact to the county court system, I hope you would not also have a problem with an organization that represents the aggrieved party if that person could not afford a private attorney. Yes, we sue people. Yes, we sometimes sue people in authority, including governmental entities. But unless you're able to show that this was a meritless, frivolous lawsuit, you're using our legal actions over a decade ago as a result to stop supporting our organization, and that seems to me counterproductive, especially since the people most hurt by your decision are those with the least resources to combat injustices. I am more than aware of what it's like to balance a budget and a tough decision face every day to make this county operate. I respectfully request that you reconsider your decision and refund our organization. And as I said, I do have a one-page fact sheet that tells you what we've been doing the last 8 years.
All right. Yeah, let everyone get the sheet.
I got one for.
Yeah, there you
so,
go.
Ms. Clockner, so how does a Madison resident get referred to you?
They can call our office. So it's self-referral. We don't require that somebody else refer them to us. There's some organizations that operate that way, but a lot of times they find out actually through social services, through the courthouse. The court clerk will say, "Oh, sweetheart, you do not know what you're doing. Why don't you go and call legal aid?" SAFE, which is the Domestic Violence Center in Culpeper, refers a lot of folks to us. So word of mouth, court system, social service agencies, and just word of mouth.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for Mrs. Faulkner? Thank you very much, ma'am.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Patrick Monty, Rappahannock Rapidan Regional Commission. Welcome.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you very much for the opportunity.
as Mr. Jackson said, I'm Patrick Monty, Executive Director of the Rapidan Regional Commission. I believe in front of you, you've got two requests from our office. The one that's on the screen right now is our housing and homelessness request. This is one that was first made in 2016 and allows the Regional Commission to serve as the lead agency for Foothills Housing Network, which works to support homelessness response in the region. Specifically for Madison County, that involves a lot of coordination and partnership with Department of Social Services. Previously, we'd worked a lot and continue to work with Mesa when they operated Barbara's House. But at this point in time, our main point of contact is through social services. And that's taking referrals, answering phone calls for people seeking information, whether they're homeless already or seeking information on preventing homelessness, evictions, things of that nature. Our role in that field for Foothills Housing Network is to serve as the lead agency, so coordinating other agencies and other organizations that are working in that housing and homelessness field in the region. And we took on that role, as I said, about 10 years ago in response to changes in federal structure of homelessness systems, where there has to be a regional agency and a regional response system set up. So that's where we serve as the lead agency, and we also run the coordinated entry, which is that first point of contact for many people seeking assistance through those programs. As the cover letter says there, that is an unchanged request. We put a process in place about 7 years ago with the funding mechanism, funding structure that we have not sought to change. That offsets some of our costs, so that the majority of federal and state grants that come in for that can go to clients and to service providers to provide services rather than the administrative side. So I'm happy to answer questions on that request or go into the second request on our per capita rate.
Questions for Patrick on Foothill Housing? Who's next, Patrick?
Okay, the second request is our per capita dues rate. So we have an 83-cent per capita rate, which is set by our Regional Commission Board of Directors, which includes Chairman Jackson and Mr. Weekly from the county, as well as Mayor Lamar from the town of Madison. This enables us to serve in our function as a regional coordinator of programs and services and projects. Our local dues make up typically anywhere from about 10 to 12% of our overall annual budget. In the current fiscal year, they're about 7%. We receive outside grants from state and federal sources and some from nonprofit and private foundations, which make up the bulk of our funding. You can see there, paragraph towards the bottom, our priorities were mostly centered on transportation, on housing, environmental planning, and that includes not just watershed and water supply issues, but we've assisted the county in the past with solid waste management plans and other mandated plans from the state and federal government. Economic development and tourism. We're getting ready to kick off a comprehensive economic development strategy for the region next week, working over the next year, identifying opportunities that would fit within each of the counties and the towns in the region, but also would serve the region wide as well. And then, as I said, transportation. So a lot of times we'll we've assisted the county in the past with smart scale applications for transportation funding, and just serving in a liaison role between the county and state agencies and federal agencies as well. One thing that I like to say, and I've probably said to all of you before, one role that we often play is just connecting not only individuals and departments, but the jurisdictions in our region. So we've got the 5 counties and the 8 towns. I can think of projects in the past year where I've worked with your economic development and tourism director, your emergency coordinator, Mr. Helm, certainly the board and the planning commission right now as we're assisting with the comprehensive plan update. And then obviously with Mr. Weekly as the county administrator. So I feel like a lot of times our role is really connecting with a lot of different departments because we are involved in a lot of different programs. And if we're not involved in a program and we get a request to, we do our best to respond to that if a locality has that need. So again, I'm happy to answer questions. I hope that our work and our presence with the county has been appreciated and noticed, and we certainly appreciate the opportunity to continue to partner with you on all manner of planning and program activities.
Any questions for Patrick?
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Please.
Patrick, I was just sitting here talking with Jennifer, and I want to make sure I captured. I don't know if it's run through the regional commission, but the county gets some benefit. I know Mr. James gives us an update report, and somehow that's ran through Fall Cure. That doesn't touch your line item, does
It
it?
does
Or
not touch our budget. However, what I would say, and this is the Regional Legislative Services Program, where we serve is really as the coordinator. Balkier runs the fiscal side of it, but in terms of coordination with Mr. James and offering that feedback through his office in Richmond, that's really the role we serve in developing that regional legislative program. That's one that previously actually spanned not only our region, but also the Fredericksburg area. And so when the Fredericksburg area decided to go in a different direction, we sort of spearheaded maintaining that relationship.
we'll have to go down and track that last expenditure. It's a great service. I just couldn't recall where it hit. We don't want to miss anything in this year's budget.
Sure.
So.
No, it's for Fauquier County would be where the invoice is going to come from.
Thank you, sir.
Other questions?
Well, I don't have a question, but I would like to make the board aware, and I'm sure Jim is that Patrick and his team at RRC made it possible for Skyline Cap to purchase what was Barbara's house, which they're now calling Apartments on Main, to set up 6 affordable housing apartments, which was prior to that had been a vacant building for probably 3 years at least, or 4 years. So they administered the funds, and we appreciate that.
Well, you're welcome. And that should add, actually is the first bullet point on my list, and I should have referenced it specifically, but it is a program that we received funding from Virginia Housing, and tried to identify projects that could put affordable housing units in place in the region. And I may have mentioned it last year, but I certainly echo it this year's. What that meant for us was, let's find projects that are appropriate or supported by the localities. And in this case, that one really felt like a good fit for Madison. We've got a couple of projects in Culpeper that are generating, upwards of 90 additional units, which wouldn't work for Madison or Rappahannock or many of our jurisdictions. And so that was our goal, was to find projects that would be supported and would fit in within the context of the communities with which the housing would be placed. So
I hate giving compliments. And it's taken me several years to kind of understand. And Patrick's like the most under-assuming person that I know. I really think that's right. And I've been telling people that, Patrick. They are professional facilitators. The bang for our buck, I mean, this is flat funding here. The bang for the buck that we get out of Patrick and his whole team and group is tremendous. If the county has issues or planning issues or lots of different, anything that needs facilitating, chances are Patrick can figure out some answers for it. He brings just a wealth of information to the table. And I mean, he's helped us with comp plans. He works with the town. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. This is great value. I mean, just tremendous. So, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
That's all I got. Anybody else? Thanks, Patrick.
Thank you.
All right, let's go. Foothills Child Advocacy, Ms. Hurst.
Good evening. Thanks for having us here to learn a little bit more about what we're doing here in Madison. I'm stalling a bit, so while Jennifer maybe is getting the PowerPoint lined up. Foothills has been working with the folks in Madison County since 2012. And the children come to us, you can change this slide, one of 2 ways, well, actually 3. The Commonwealth Attorney sometimes refers children to Foothills Child Advocacy Center. Sometimes children are referred to us through the Sheriff's Department, and sometimes through Child Protective Services. And Hannah Hoffman, who's our program director, is here with me today. She and I just finished meeting with the folks over at DSS to talk about how we can serve the county even better. What we're doing here is helping children who've experienced abuse. These kids, for the most part, have experienced either sexual or physical abuse, and we are giving them an opportunity to come to a child-friendly facility and be forensically interviewed. Next slide, please.
We work with all of these entities here in Madison County, and we meet regularly with all of them so that we're coordinating each case. We go over every child that we're helping here in Madison with all of these different services every time we meet so that we can be sure that no child is falling through the cracks and every aspect of their care is happening. Next slide, please. These are the types of abuse we're talking about. I already mentioned physical and sexual abuse. We're also looking at mental and emotional abuse, neglect, medical neglect, as well as physical neglect. That could be food, housing, clothing. It could be not taking a kid to the doctor when they need to go. Also, substance abuse, exposed infants, and witness to domestic violence. And these are the things that under Virginia law are considered child abuse. We're seeing an uptick right now in the witness to domestic violence. You're probably hearing more about domestic violence around the country as well as locally. We're seeing more guns being waved around in the homes, and children are exposed to that. Foothills, as I've already mentioned, is a child-friendly place. They come in, there are toys, there are bright colors, there are friendly staff, and we do the forensic interviews. There is equipment to record the child so that the child only hopefully has to tell their story one time. Before we existed, they had to go to the Commonwealth Attorney. They had to go to the police department. They had to go to DSS. They had to go all around and keep telling their story over and over, and it causing a lot of trauma for the child. We take that necessity away, and it's recorded, and then DSS and the Commonwealth Attorney and the Sheriff's Department are each given a copy of that recording from our equipment. We also provide connection to services in the community. Hannah herself has been spending this week working with 20 different families in all the jurisdictions that we serve, making sure that they are handheld through the process so that they can understand how does the court work? What can my child expect? What services can I tap into that the community already provides? We also have a medical exam room on site. We have a child abuse pediatrician who's specifically trained to check the child for any signs of abuse and look for any forensic evidence, and also testifies in court. Our staff also testify in court whenever that's needed by the Commonwealth. In addition, we have mental health services on site, and we provide referrals to mental health services in Madison. These are the spaces. You can't see the whole child friendly space at
This
Foothills, but
conference
that's
will now be
very
recorded.
perfect chairs there for the older kids. We also have a little kids room. We can do interviews of 2 children at once now. And on many days, unfortunately, that's needed. We also can interview kids right here in the Commonwealth Attorney's office, so the families don't have to travel all that way. This gives them the opportunity to interview here in a close location if the family has any travel concerns. There's our medical space. Dr. Jennifer Andrews, as I've already mentioned, is a child abuse pediatrician. She also works part of the time at the University of Virginia Hospital. And the other thing I just wanted to mention that having that medical exam can provide for the kid is the knowledge that everything's okay. Sometimes it's just that. We also had a little boy at one point who, his question was to the doctor, hadn't asked anybody else, is there any chance I could be pregnant? Right. So this is one of the things that can happen if you have a doctor to listen to. And the other thing I wanted to point out is we're seeing a more and more need for mental health services. These kids have undergone traumatic experiences, and the best thing we can do is give them mental health services as soon as they're ready to start talking. We don't want it to go too long, and so we want to provide those bridge services whenever possible. If they need longer term care, then referring them to those folks. But in the meantime, giving them that care right away as soon as we're able. So they're not sitting on waiting lists. Sometimes those waiting lists are up to 4 months long right now. Also, these are the raw numbers of, we're helping the children, we're also helping the caregivers. And you can see here our projections. We're looking at, for the year that we're asking for the funding, probably about 20 kids coming in, which will be back up closer to what we saw in 2019 and 2021 before the pandemic kind of took that dip, what a lot of places saw. So what we're asking is the cost for taking care of one child. As I just said, we're looking at 20 kids probably in fiscal year 24. $3,100 is the cost of one child, and we're asking you for $3,000. Times 20, we're looking at $62,000 total. That'll be a cost to Foothills, minus what we're going to get from the state. And that leaves us to come up with $36,663 to care for the children in Madison County. We're asking you to support one child.
Questions? Thank you for your work. Fair enough. Yeah, that's easy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
All right, Jim, Gigi, come on up. Talk to us about the CSB. Welcome.
I believe Jennifer's pulling up our requests.
I haven't been down on Thrift. Are you starting construction?
No,
Probably no, nothing.
No, not yet.
No.
We have all those governmental procurement laws like everyone else.
Right,
So we do have preliminary plans. We reviewed them about 2 weeks ago, sent some revisions to the architect. It is my hope that, I would have hoped to have seen them by now, but we are also submitting in the second week of March a low-income housing tax credit application in the town of Orange. So if you know the old Sheltering Arms building, and we have a small office next door, we're working with Virginia Housing to actually demolish that entire block, create a new office and 21 affordable housing units. So that application is going to be in March, and the same architect is working on both projects for us. So hopefully sooner than later. So you have our request in front of you. I won't repeat the agency accomplishments of last year. I already did that for you. That was no budget. Unless you want to give me $10 million or whatever that number was up there. Where was it? It's been a long day. I think that's the norm lately, right? So we are asking for the continuation of last year's funds with a 5% cost of living adjustment, just because of the cost increases that we are seeing organizationally. Again, I'm very appreciative. I know the support this county has given us the last 3 budget cycles. They were very significant. They have made us whole. They've allowed us to really dramatically increase services, salaries, the cost of staffing, and those types of things. And we understand that rate of increase cannot be continued. So it's just our standard ask, which is based on the required 10% matches, the support for our senior programs, the support for our transportation program, and those types of things. Any questions, I'm happy to answer them. A lot going on in the organization. So.
That's what we like to hear.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, we will be, the board, I think, of significance for this, our board, the significance of this board, just recently adopted a new strategic plan. I say new strategic plan, that's the assumption there was an old one. So we have a new strategic plan that took place on January 1st. There's 7 major goals in the strategic plan, but really what they revolve around is it's too hard to get into our programs. We need to ease of access, and ease of access by location and service times, as well as the kind of entry process. Thrift Road absolutely plays right into that. We have to increase awareness of what we do. I think at last count, someone told me we had 81 or 82 different programs and services that we run. And people just don't know what we do. And I always get these questions all the time. Wouldn't it be nice if somebody did this, right? And my usual answer is, well, we actually do that. People just don't know. Along with increasing awareness of what we do, as part of the strategic planning process, we sent out 2,000 email surveys. We did 100 interviews and then 25 specific interviews with different stakeholders. One of the things we heard over and over again was our organizational name is a problem. And there's a couple reasons why. It's very confusing. Patrick, who I agree with you, Clay, is a great guy. Support everything Patrick does. He helps us all the time. But Rappahannock Rapidan Regional Commission, Rappahannock Rapidan Health District, Rappahannock Area Community Service Board, it's a mess. As well as the biggest barrier for people coming to us is stigma. We know that, right? Stigma is the biggest reason people don't get help. Because we have been around for so long, we just celebrated 50 years, I think, as people know. We have become associated with publicly funded behavioral health, because that's really what we are for the most part. And so if you are already apprehensive of reaching out for help, it's even harder to reach out if you're thinking it's the publicly funded behavioral health system. So one of the first things that we will be doing, I think, as an organization, is proposing a new doing business as name for the organization, to rebrand us, to re-look at how we present ourselves to the community so that stigma gets reduced. That name, I'm hopeful, will be accepted by our board next week. So we will be publicizing it out in the community. And I think as we go through that process, it will really help people feel better about reaching out to us. Because I think we are a very different organization. And our facilities have increased in kind of their appearance and utility for the people who need help. We have absolutely raised the caliber of the staff who work for us. We are, one of the best paying community service boards regionally. We have very low staff vacancy rates and turnover, and we really want people to come and get the help and support they need from us. So your support in that regard is always appreciated.
They have questions for Jim. Thank you for what you're doing. We look forward to having you here in Madison.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jim.
Have a good one.
Are you going to when you've got somebody here as like a director or somebody here, you're going to have them come to our meetings periodically?
I mean, the site will be multi-use.
Yeah.
So it won't be a Madison director, but
Somebody so that people will start hearing about the good stuff that you're doing. Well, we appreciate you, but we figure you've got things to do. Thank you, Jim. All right, let's go. Thomas Jefferson, EMS Council. Yes, sir, please.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss with you this evening. I know I missed my opportunity last year. I'm just going to start off as you're pulling up my proposal. I've been here with Thomas Jefferson EMS Council for just a little over 18 months. And when I came on board, I had three principles that I wanted to push forward: collaboration, communication, and customer service. Because I felt is not only dealing and working with the EMS agencies that I provide service to, being able to make the connection between state OEMS and to the EMS agencies and to the providers, it really needed a good channel of communication and collaboration with other organizations. In fact, I've been trying to track down Jim for about a year now, and so knowing having him in front of me, I was able to slip a couple business cards in his pocket and a couple of GPS trackers in case I can't find him this weekend. That being said, when I proposed a budget request last year, you approved a budget of $1,000 for us for the fiscal year 23, and I'm asking for a significant increase from last year, but a decrease from the year prior, and that's listed out in In fiscal year 22, Madison County had provided TGEMS $7,743. Last year was approved for $1,000, and this year I'm asking for $5,595. Right. The reason for that number, the original number, I have to be honest with you, I have no idea where it came from. And I've been spending the last 18 months trying to figure out where and how to cut down the services so that I can identify specifically with the EMS agencies, both paid and volunteer within the region, how our services are impacting those agencies. Right now, on the state side of it, I'm one of 11 council directors that are trying to enhance funding for EMS agencies statewide. Presently, statewide, we're provided EMS agencies are provided about $50 million, and that's really challenging when we have 708 agencies and a lot of providers throughout the Commonwealth. We have 1,500 providers here within the region, 7 counties and the city of Charlottesville, of which Madison has about 5% of those providers. And that's the number that the $5,500 is based off of, is having about 5% of the providers in the area. What we're focusing on in terms of providing to the providers and to the EMS agencies, the big one is training and making sure that whether it's training on new equipment, training on new protocols, training on issues that we're finding a departure from the standard of care, which overlaps with our performance improvement. Being able to track and see trends and making sure that quality patient care, when people call or activate 911 and get a response, that we're able to track that and see that that quality of care is maintained at a high level, or if there's any discrepancies, that we're able to identify quickly and then work with the EMS agency's leadership to identify ways that we can train and make sure that we get back to that standard of care. In fiscal year 24, the councils statewide, the state offers a symposium in Norfolk, and it hasn't moved from Norfolk just because of the availability of lodging. However, the state had heard from agencies throughout the Commonwealth saying, how about bringing it a little closer to home? So what they've done is the state is going to continue to have a symposium in the fall, in November, but in the springs, they wanted the councils to host EMS expos for training and information dispersal. They didn't want to fund 11 different expos, so I ended up, I partnered with 2 other councils here, one directly to the north and one directly to the west, so we have a rotating expo between the 3 councils. And Madison County is a great spot for it because it's really the one, the center of the hub, if you will, between the 3 councils. So it's going to be very beneficial for all the providers within Madison County to be able to get to those expos. TGEMS is going to be hosting it for 2024, 2025 up in Lord Fairfax, and this year it's over at Central Shenandoah. 3 other things. Patient care reporting. Madison County has transitioned to what is called ESO, which is just a different platform that the state has rolled out for providing the ability to track the patient, and then for our ability to track it and mine the data to identify for performance improvement. Madison County EMS has already made that transition, so we're supporting that. The hospitals in the region, both UVA and Martha Jefferson, are getting ready for the ESO hospital side of it, which is going to help make the communication from the EMS providers to the hospital and to the physicians and then back to the providers almost instantaneously. Right now, we're just waiting on C-suite actions to get all of those components put into place. But as they're moving through, TGEMS is providing a technical assistance for Madison County EMS, so that if there's any problems with their ESO package, we can take care of those things. The other 2 things is regional plans and mental health and wellness. If you had asked me 6 months ago that I would have had to spend at least 3 weeks tracking down all the county's planners to check what their capacity for dealing with patients with Ebola was. I've been like, we did this already. We don't need to do it again. We're set. But again, we got tested. All right. Fortunately, we didn't have a patient that presented that way, but we didn't want to risk it, and we wanted to make sure we had capacity within the region. So we had to go through that exercise, and that's really what all emergency preparedness is all about. Is we're preparing for all the what ifs, hoping that we never have to put things into play. But if something does get put into play, that's where the mental health and wellness component comes in at the forefront and the focus. TGEMS provides a number of forums for agencies to share best practices. And Madison County had, through Rescue Squad Assistance Fund, had submitted an application to try to get an app for mental health and wellness for their providers. It really opened up a conversation amongst the other directors and the other agencies as thinking outside the box. So we supported that, pushed it to the state. Unfortunately, it wasn't funded, but because it was brought to our attention and really received a lot of support from other agencies, we're looking at that as a resource and feasibility to provide region-wide, if not statewide. So the opportunity for Madison County to share with other agencies within the region, for Madison County to hear from other agencies, that's what TGEMS is for. That's what TGEMS is there. Where I don't want to come across as it's my way or the highway, but providing multiple forums for individuals and individual agencies to share those best practices. Anybody have any questions?
Do you meet with their EMS director, I mean, a certain number of times a year, or?
I've got them on speed dial.
Okay.
No, so we meet at least, at bare minimum, every 2 months. And that's if he's trying to avoid me. If there's something he needs or if there's something I need, we definitely have channels of communication. And if he's not available, there's a number of leaders within the EMS agency that I can reach out to and make sure that things are taken care of. One of the situations that was just brought to my attention was some challenges with Martha Jefferson's freestanding emergency department. One of the reasons a freestanding emergency department was built there was so that Greene and Madison County can get their EMS agencies back to their first due as quickly as possible so that there wasn't an extended stay without coverage. As issues were brought to my attention, I brought Centera in and brought Madison and Greene with Centera. We sat down, worked out, and we've made an action plan so that we can resolve some of these issues. And again, that's the purpose of TGEMS, is being able to provide support to the agencies, bring them and liaise with the hospitals, and address the issues so that we can have quality patient care for the individuals within the county.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions? Thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Phipps. This is Aging Together.
Hi, thanks so much. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity. Valerie Ward, who I know you all know, whom you've heard from today, is on our board of directors, and she normally joins me, but she wasn't able to be here. But Aging Together is basically a partnership organization. We were launched initially to prepare for the unprecedented growth in the older adult population. Right now in Madison County, you're looking at about 22% of the population that's over the age of 65, about 3,000 people. That's supposed to double by 2050. And you have about 900 veterans here. And Madison County is actually very rich in resources for older adults. There's really a lot going on with the faith communities and government agencies like Jim was talking about and Patrick. But one thing that Aging Together does is we sort of look at the gaps in services. And one of the big gaps that we discovered a couple of years ago was that older adults just didn't know where to go for information. And so we are now, this is actually, one thing we did was we created the first ever in our region, regional resource guide for older adults. I think I talked about this a couple of years ago as well, but this is our second edition, and it's 96 pages. And there's a section also in Spanish, and also one page for each county. So if this was too overwhelming, to go through 96 pages for information, you could tear out your Madison County page and stick that on your fridge. And it has critical phone numbers and websites for every kind of organization, where to get food, where to get transportation, where to get caregiver support. It also has some education in here. What are the 10 warning signs of heart attack? What are the 10 warning signs of a stroke? What are the warning signs for Alzheimer's or dementia? So it's more than just a directory. It's also an educational piece. This is just one example of one of the things that Aging Together does, responding to a need in the community for older adults. And this has been really successful. One thing that we didn't count on, we developed this. This is free of charge, by the way, and we deliver this to anybody who needs boxes of these. We have them. But one thing we didn't anticipate was that actually social services agencies, the CSB agency, all of their staff have been using this, so that when they get calls about, from an older adult saying, where do I go for a support group for Alzheimer's or something like that, that's listed in here. So it's just one example of one of the things that Aging Together does to respond to a community need. Additionally, we also have programs for older adults and for caregivers. We are trying to also combat ageism by focusing on the positivity of aging. And we do that by recognizing one person in each of our 5 counties who've made a significant contribution. It's usually an older adult. It was kind of a younger older adult this past year. It was Kevin McGee who received the award. But the idea is to really focus, to have a positive image that older adults contribute to our communities. They volunteer, they donate to charities. Many are still working. So we want to kind of get away from this image of old and frail and helpless. And so that's another thing that we really work hard to do at Aging Together. We continue to meet monthly in Madison County. We have a Madison County team. We meet at the senior center with Shirley. She's a very active member of our team. We, during the pandemic, we gave out iPads to nursing homes and assisted livings. We gave out companion robotic pets to people with dementia in facilities, because that was one way to address social isolation. We've developed a social isolation task force to try to reach out people who might be living alone. Social isolation has been a huge problem, which was just exacerbated by the pandemic. So we do a lot of work with innovative programs to try to address that. We have an annual Art of Aging Expo for people to come to get healthcare screenings or get flu shots or get information. We have vendors there and they can get information. It's all free for people. And our board of directors represents the 5 DSS agencies, and as well as the CSB. We have a member from there, and also Patrick Money from the Regional Commission is on our board of directors as well. We're getting ready to embark on our community conversations this year. And that's how we find out how to inform our strategic plan. We're really asking the community, what are the needs? What are the gaps in services? Like, is there something, for example, transportation is always an issue, and the newly formed Regional Transportation Collaborative, the need for that came out of some of the Aging Together community conversations a few years ago. So we like to hear from the public about that. We are asking for $3,000. Again, this year, that's level funding that we've had for the last several years. And we're a very small staff, and the funding helps us to have a presence in each of the counties and in Madison County, and to help coordinate the different programs that we do, and to help develop this guide. We don't farm this out. Our outreach director put this together herself. It's quite incredible, actually, when you think about it. I think that's it. If anybody has any questions for me.
Have you thought of going to 6 over 60? Every year I say the same thing, and it's looking bad for me. I mean, now I'm closer to 50, so I guess I'm on the downward slope at this point in life. I mean,
We're 8 over 80.
It seems like we're mischaracterizing everybody. All right, flat funding. Anybody else got any questions or comments? There you go. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
All right, Miss Lacey, come down and talk to us about the Madison Learning Center.
Mr. Chairman, I'm on this board, so I will not be participating in any discussion.
Right. I have other board members, another board member here. I have our director here, and I think I have moral support and a family that's been involved, but I'll miss you, Cardi. So thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. I'm here to speak with you as an advocate, and now I have learned as an older person, for Madison Learning Center Incorporated, and as the board chair of Madison Learning Center. Madison Learning Center, or MLC, is a local, standalone, nonprofit business that provides services of early childhood education and child care with before and after and summer care for our school-age children. The families and children of our center definitely reflect the demographics of Madison. We are, and when I say we, it's not that I own it, it's just the way I talk. So sorry, it's not mine, it's just we. But MLC is licensed by the Virginia Department of Education now. It used to be licensed by Department of Social Services. It's licensed for over 100 children, but that's an awful lot. So we say about 100 children from 4 weeks of age to 12 years. The enrollment can vary based on the ages of the children enrolled and the availability of the staff. The number of staff varies, again, based on the number of children enrolled, and currently we are having quite a challenge in hiring staff. MLC was deeded the building from Culpeper Wellness Foundation in December of 2019, so we own the building along with all the problems that means. I am very grateful to be here. However, I wish I could be here as a more traditional nonprofit entity that is able to give our services for free or at a very nominal cost to the families and children of our community. Or quite honestly, I wish I didn't have to be here at all, not because this makes me much more nervous than talking to 4-year-olds, but because I would like to see early learning and childcare somehow available to all families, with the services being subsidized by perhaps federal or state funds, or even some very generous donors. Yet currently in our country, the system in place now for childcare is primarily filled by private providers. So the question, why does our community of Madison need Madison Learning Center? Our children need a safe place to be during the day with age-appropriate education, with a goal of getting them ready to attend kindergarten. Madison Learning Center is a key element of this service, along with Head Start and the pre-K programs at the primary school. Second, our families need a safe place for their children to be in order for them to be employed, for the parents and the families to be employed. Madison Learning Center is a key element of this service. We also have our public schools and the Boys and Girls Club. Our businesses need their employees to have a safe place for their children while they are working. Quality childcare is a must for recruiting new businesses to Madison and, quite frankly, new families to Madison too. Madison Learning Center is an important key in that need. Our employees allow other employees to be employed. Madison Learning Center is a completely licensed child care center. We're licensed again by the Virginia Department of Education. There's approximately 700 guidelines in that licensing that we have to follow every day. Some of them are very complicated. Some of them make good sense, like you need to wash your hands before you eat. Our children are served 2 meals and a snack every day. We serve breakfast and lunch and a snack. We also, besides our license to operate, we have a food service license, actually a restaurant license, and all of those requirements that that license has, such as being inspected by the Department of Health. We're also inspected by the fire marshal. We have a fire suppression system and automatic call system to the fire department, and the suppression hood in the kitchen. All of those are inspected on a yearly basis. And all of these inspections are because of how licensed we are. We participate in the CACFP program, which is through USDA. It's a way of getting reimbursements for what we feed the children. Usually, I would say 3 years ago, we were 75, 80%, sometimes 100% that was covering our costs. Right now, we're lucky if it covers half of our grocery costs, and we do shop for most of our groceries locally. Childcare is currently in a nationwide crisis with a plethora of statistics available to support that. However, I'm not going to take your time with all of that because what I'm concerned about is not on a national level. My focus, my concern, and my energy is right here. So I'm here tonight to advocate for Madison Learning Center, to lobby, and basically to throw in a little bit of begging for assistance from the Board of Supervisors as they consider their new budget. Without sufficient outside financial assistance, and I mean above and beyond what our families pay in tuition, I'm afraid Madison Learning Center has a strong potential to become part of the statistics of child care centers that close and can no longer offer their services to the community. I have lived here long enough to stop right now and say, please note, I do not care for the rumor that Madison Learning Center is closing tomorrow. We are not closing. I am here to ask for your help. Since our first opening in August of 2014, when we operated under the nonprofit status of MESA, to our current status of having our own nonprofit status since December of 2019, Madison Learning Centers received donations from individuals, churches, businesses, and foundations. And for all of these donations, we are very grateful. The tuition Madison Learning Center receives from families pays for between 75 and 80% of our expenses, which is pretty well what childcare does nationwide. This number can vary based on our enrollment and what the upkeep of that 26-year-old building is. With the pandemic relief funds Madison Learning Center received from various government programs being spent down, and we got the PPP and some of the other ones, I can't spout those as well, but we got quite a bit of those programs. And with no foreseeable possibility of this type of funding being available for private providers, it's imperative that Madison Learning Center find a way to obtain the necessary funding aside from tuition. My hope and dream is that the challenges of finding employees decreases so that Madison Learning Center can increase our enrollment, which in turn will help with some of our financial needs. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening, and thank you for caring about our Madison community. I know you all care about this community, or you wouldn't be sitting where you are tonight. I'm asking for your support, not only because we need some financial support, I also need your support to add the Madison Board of Supervisors to the names of the individual donors, business donors, and foundation donors, and church donors, civic organizations, and clubs that believe in the services Madison Learning Center provides to our families, our children, and our staff. And I'm here because I personally believe in the extreme importance of early childhood education. I believe our current and our future families need Madison Learning Center to be available for their needs. And I also believe Madison Learning Center is needed as an opportunity for employment. There's one young lady sitting in your audience tonight who can attest to that. I want to close with a quote from one of my favorite people, Mr. Rogers. Mr. Rogers said, We live in a world in which we need to share responsibilities. It's easy to say, it's not my child, not my community, not my world, not my problem. Then there are those who see the need and respond. I, Mr. Rogers, and I myself consider those people my heroes. I'm asking for your decision to be a yes to provide assistance to the families, children, staff of Madison Learning Center. Thank you.
Questions from Mrs. Lacy?
I would like to offer you the opportunity, anybody, the opportunity, if you have not seen what's inside our building, to please come and visit us. Just give me a holler.
You are though hoping that this is, and your board, you're hoping that this is a reoccurring ask going forward, correct?
I think if we can get through and get some more staff in, this may be a lull right now. Yes, I would love to have the Board of Supervisors give us some money each year. I don't think I will always need this kind of money, but yes. So yeah, I'd like to come each year as a nonprofit. And I've been asked, are you a business or are you a nonprofit? And I think the answer, without being a smart aleck, is yes. We are a business, but we are a nonprofit. So yes, I'd like to come back again, but probably not at this level. We have been, it's really hurt us not being able to find employees.
And you think the increase of staff based on the ratios of the pupils versus staff will increase your profitability and sustainability?
I think it will help. I don't know that any business has a guarantee they're going to always stay in business, but I wouldn't be here if I didn't believe in this. And I must say, this has to keep going on until I age out, and maybe somebody else will stand up and tell you we need this. But I think this will sustain, but we definitely need some help right now.
All right, other questions, Ms. Lacy? Ms. Lacy, thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
One of the privilege, Ms. Warren has a.
What? Excuse me.
Just a quick, when we met, I remember you mentioning there was some specific capital needs that you guys had upcoming. Am I correct in that there was, that was part of where the funds would go?
I think I used an example. Within 3 weeks, we had over close to $7,000 worth of unexpected repairs. We had to replace a valve on our sprinkling system, and we had to replace the fan in our suppression hood in our kitchen. So things like that will pop up. I would love to get our floors redone, but $3,500 to do an 8,000 square foot building right now is just not on the top of the list. So,
okay, thank you.
I'm trying to remember. I mean, with ARPA, we did some washing machines, and it's listed out here.
Yes.
How much was that?
I think we got about $18,000. We got desks because we had sometimes 20 school-age kids doing their Zoom, and we got a commercial washer and dryer. For that, we're very grateful. The school kids still use the desks. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Lacy.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Weekly, I think we've knocked out the list.
That concludes the budget lineup we had today, Mr. Chairman. Unless you have any questions, I think your next item is public comment, if you so choose.
All right. Public comment. Jim? If you're talking to the mic, though, if you could, we'd really appreciate it. And this one's fun.
Thank you. Jim Smith, is this on now? Great. Jim Smith, I live in Brightwood. I couldn't help but notice the earlier conversation on the stabilization fund and your targeted general fund balance. In a former life, I did cost of capital for utilities by and large. For an insane amount of an hourly rate, I'd go in with a tape with the sun, the moon, the stars on it, divide the cost of capital. And that was the basis then for creating the revenue requirement for the utilities. And it's not that different from what we're doing right here. you have all the expense items that you have to get tax money or other items to cover those expenses. And in your return on equity, as it were, you have to somehow divine a rate in your weighted average cost of capital so that you will pay your debt service each year. And in that weighted cost of capital, there is an equity component. My experience here and other places shortly after I started focusing more on non-for-profits, governmentals, and by and large consumer-owned entities, which would be co-ops, mutuals, and small government entities. I got involved with a gentleman I'd done some hospital takeovers with at KKR, who started looking at not-for-profits and trying to determine what their cost of equity capital was. My experience here in Madison was when we're looking to do a lease purchase analysis on a piece of equipment for the department, and said, well, we don't do that. I mean, we don't do that in governmental entities. Well, that's the wrong answer. You do that. For the last 15 years, I've been teaching the subject at a graduate level. And when you're looking at cost of capital here in Madison, the cost of equity capital, the cost of debt we can figure out, but the cost of equity, what's the source of it? What's the taxpayers? And we're a poor community, and if they are on the edge, you can look at the marginal rate of credit cards to be a bogey for you. That's 25% and plus. So when you're talking about raising the amount of fund balance you have, the only source for that is your tax rate. The only source. So when the Gucci boys come to you with their silk suspenders and telling you need 20% instead of 14%, ask them why. Ask them what the benefit is of that delta, and ask them what the cost is of the delta. I've done some work with Arlington County, which is worlds and worlds apart from Madison. The only thing we have in common is the magisterial districts. They wanted to have a AAA rating on their debt issuances. Well, why? What is the benefit of a AAA rating over a AA rating? And what's the cost to your citizens of getting that kind of a rating? Well, it's an astronomically high cost. It's maybe a quarter basis point at what you're borrowing. You don't do that. You work through a pooled fund here in this state and enjoy a pretty low cost of capital, cost of debt capital. Around 7%, I guess, is high for our weighted cost. So when you start mixing the 7% with the 25% as a bogey, there are other ways to look at determining what the cost of equity is, but it's not zero. When you think about it, think about the taxpayers, think about what they're giving up to give it to you, and understand that they're into the bank.
Other public comment? Other public comment? All right, public comments closed. We're gonna have a closed session just today. That's 107, just shy of 170K in new money asked for, not including any salaries of any type. So it's a bunch of money. We've only got
That's a
another.
penny.
Yeah, it's just shy of a penny. That's right. Exactly. We only have another 6 or 8 of these things. So there we go. What do y'all want to do?
Mr. Chairman, I
Move
move
to
to adjourn.
I'm sorry. I second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign. Thank you all. Thank you.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Buckle up. Yeah.
This conference is no longer being recorded.
I mean, just
You're not gonna stick around, Chuck?
um,
Who did? Oh.